watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you. Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. It is day 8 of the government shutdown. Let me give you a live look at the U.S. Capitol right now in Washington, D.C., where we expect a vote on the Senate floor in about 20 minutes or so that could reopen the government, or at least be a step toward that. We will see what happens from that coming up in just a little bit. We are also tracking a lot of the different impacts today at the airports. We are getting ready to hear, let me give you a live look at this news conference that we expect shortly, where some federal workers will be talking about the impacts, or union representatives talking about the impact of the government shutdown on federal workers and on transit workers. So we are tracking a number of those impacts today. Let me take you live right now, though, to the Senate floor. We are hearing from Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, who is speaking right now ahead of this expected vote on potentially ending the government shutdown. Let's go ahead and listen in here.
I pray that the court system will respond accordingly, as they did in the case of Oregon in Illinois, when the hearing tomorrow is brought before the federal judge. Deploying the Texas National Guard without the consent of Illinois elected officials is, in my estimation, unnecessary and unlawful.
For a little bit of context here, it sounds now like Senator Durbin is talking about the deploying of the Texas National Guard to Illinois. So we'll still listen in here for a couple of minutes here live on the Senate floor.
Deserve to be used by the president's political pawns. And let me say and make it clear, as much as I regret the decision by the Texas governor to send his National Guard troops into Illinois, and as much as I want them to leave immediately, I do not make those statements at the expense of the individuals who are in the Guard and volunteered to serve their state and nation. The same thing is true with the federalized Illinois National Guard. They are doing what they are ordered to do, as according to the military standards. But the bottom line is, we all know they are not fighting crime. If the Trump administration truly wants to help Chicago, and I don't believe they do, and Illinois, it won't defy our elected leaders. It will work with us. It would restore millions of dollars it suspended, the Trump administration suspended, in crime prevention and public safety grants. Instead, this administration has chosen to use America's military to create chaos and sow fear in our cities. We all agree on the importance of reducing crime and making our communities safer. The president claims his aggressive immigration raids and threats to deploy troops are to help get violent criminals off the streets.
So Senator Durbin continuing to talk about the deploying of the National Guard to Illinois. About 200 Texas National Guard troops have arrived near Chicago. That according to Fox News reporting. Again, we are standing by for that Senate vote expected in the next 20 minutes or so when it comes to potentially ending the government shutdown, looking at the different funding plans. Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie was at Orlando International Airport earlier today, because we have seen that at a number of airports across the country, the government shutdown has caused disruptions to travel. That's because some of the federal workers at the airports, whether they are TSA workers, whether they work in air traffic control, they are likely working without paychecks and not getting paid right now. So we have not seen major disruptions here in our area, but Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie has more.
Orlando International Airport, that is the same situation an hour later. You can see the wait times behind me, just 5 to 8 minutes, and it could be less. I mean, TSA is working very smoothly right now, and even taking a look at the arrivals and departure boards, most flights are on time. Only a handful are delayed, and when you see the yellow or orange lines, you can't just automatically assume that those are delayed flights. I spoke to an official here, and she said, actually, if you look closely, most of them are flights that are arriving early. So that is some great news. But as for the flights that have been delayed, either coming in or out of the MCO, those were from Sacramento, Seattle, Chicago, Newark, Los Angeles, and Louisville. Now, the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority tells us as of now, there's really been no change in TSA staffing levels, allowing for these normal processing and wait times. But that is not the case everywhere. We heard early on that there have been staffing issues at a few airports that could have ripple effects. And Nashville, there was a 2-hour ground delay due to staffing shortages, and we're learning several major air traffic control centers, including Chicago's O'Hare Airport, are also seeing staffing issues. Experts say the issue could get worse as there's a dispute over whether federal workers will receive back pay, something President Trump said yesterday about some furloughed workers not getting back pay after the shutdown ends. And now some travelers are developing anxiety, but those traveling through MCO say it was a breeze.
We didn't have any anxiety at all.
No.
Everything was so smooth.
No.
We had a layover in Dallas, and
Everything was smooth there.
Everything was smooth there too.
Actually, it was smoother than normal.
The Greater Orlando Aviation Authority also told us in a statement that TSA, CBP, and FAA employees have displayed professionalism, and we thank them for their commitment. Now, we will continue to follow up with how these lines, these waits, and flights are affected by the government shutdown. Furloughed workers are not receiving pay right now, but it is expected that they would receive back pay once the government shutdown is over. So we will continue to bring you the latest. For now, reporting live from the Orlando International Airport, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. When we come back, we will get you to that news conference with some union leaders calling for an end to the government shutdown ahead of this vote on the Senate floor in the next 15 minutes or so. So keep it right here. More to come on Fox Local and on YouTube.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Going to get you to this news conference in just a moment, but first I want to pull up a post from Donald Trump on Truth Social giving an endorsement to James Uthmeier in the Florida Attorney General's race, saying Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier doing a great job for the Sunshine State, which I won big in 2016, 2020, and 2024, saying James is an America First warrior who is a true champion for MAGA. He is the man behind Alligator Alcatraz and argued strongly at the United States Supreme Court in defense of my executive power to fire deep state bureaucrats. Under James' fearless leadership, over 1,000 criminal pedophiles have been arrested, missing children have been saved, and our great members of law enforcement have been empowered to do their jobs and keep Florida safe. In his next term, James will continue to work tirelessly to ensure law and order, uphold our constitutional rights, and protect our always under siege Second Amendment. James Uthmeier is a strong conservative fighter and prosecutor and has my complete and total endorsement. He will not let you down, in all caps there. That post from Donald Trump on Truth Social just a few minutes ago. Now I want to get you to this news conference. That is Everett Kelly passing things off right now. These are union representatives who represent federal workers talking about the impact of the government shutdown on them, saying every day that passes is another day that they are either working without pay or staying at home and wondering what happens next. So let's go ahead and listen in as this news conference continues ahead of that vote on the Senate floor.
When you can do the math, there's roughly about 2 million federal employees. So the difference, the other folks are working. What they all have in common is they're not getting paid. They're not getting a paycheck. Now, despite what this OMB director, Russ Vought, thinks, these are working families. These are workers, working Americans that have families, that live paycheck to paycheck, that have to pay bills, have to put food on the table. And denying them a paycheck is simply cruel. It's cruel. And keep in mind, these federal employees have nothing to do with this government shutdown. Most of them are still showing up and they're working every single day. IFPTE, we represent workers at the Department of Defense, as all of these unions do, or most of them. And they're showing up and they're doing their work to help our fighting men and women and protect the defense of this nation. And what do they get in return? They get OMB Director Russ Vought, who says they may not even get a paycheck. Yeah. That is deplorable. It's shameful. Now, IFPT, I echo Brother Kelly's message to the Congress. Come together. Republicans, Democrats, come together. Let's reopen this government. And we implore President Trump to come to the table and work with both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and reopen this government. And we also, at IFPT, we also implore Congress to protect their appropriating authority. When Congress appropriates money and they designate money for these agencies, the executive branch should not have the ability to impound the money or spend the money any way they want. So when Congress appropriates the money, they have to protect their authority to be able to decide how the money's spent. So we urge Congress, number one, reopen the government and get our people their paychecks. And number two, Congress, in bipartisan way, protect your co-equal branch of government responsibility by protecting your ability to designate spending. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So
Thank you, man.
I'm honored right now to introduce my union sister, Flight Attendants President, Sarah Nelson.
All right, Sarah. Here we go, Sarah.
Thank you, Matt. My name is Sarah Nelson. I'm the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, representing 55,000 flight attendants at 20 different airlines. And we count on federal workers every single day to do our jobs. Hundreds of thousands of aviation workers, both federal sector and private sector, ask all day long, is it safe? We do that so the American public who travels with us can take safety and security for granted. Right now, TSA officers are coming to work, making good on their oath to the Constitution, to all of us, to keep us safe. Air traffic controllers are coming to work, making good on their oath to the country, just like they do every single day, understaffed and under-resourced by this government. They are coming to work under an increasingly unsafe scenario because in safety we know that the first rule is to remove all distractions in order to keep things safe. What could be more of a distraction than not getting a paycheck? Not knowing if you're going to be able to keep your family in your home. Not knowing if you're going to be able to buy that insulin that you need to keep your child alive. Not knowing that you're going to be able to make good on what the people who count on you and love you need you to do. In all of our communities, all across this country, this is not just about Washington, D.C. Federal workers serve in every single one of our communities around this country. And the people who are not getting paychecks are not paying their cable bill. They're not going to be able to pay their rent. They're not going to be able to pay for the other services. And that is going to have a ripple effect on all of us. Now, they take an oath and they take it seriously. And those who are required to come to work without the backing of the cybersecurity people who are on furlough, without the backing of the administrative people who help our people in the Social Security Administration make sure that our veterans and our other retirees continue to get their paychecks. Without the ability to have food inspectors and water inspectors on board to make sure that all of us stay safe in our communities. This is putting the rest of us increasingly at risk. This is a dangerous game. And the oath and the commitment that these federal workers are showing to all of us right now is something that Senate Majority Leader John Thune should emulate, not exploit. This is not a political game. We have two crises before us, a dismantling of our healthcare system and millions of people about to lose their healthcare, and federal workers who are going without work and without a paycheck, or at work and being told that they won't even get back pay in violation of the law. Both crises can be solved with one vote. And we call on the Senate Majority Leader to work in a bipartisan fashion and all members of the Senate to bring us to a resolution to solve both crises today. They have the power and the ability to do that, and they need to act like the federal workers who stand up for all of us and keep us safe in our communities. Flight attendants stand with them. We stand with all federal workers. We stand for our Constitution, and we stand for the principles that are in this country that is first and foremost about making sure that in our communities we remain safe with solidarity for everyone around us. Thank you very much. And now, let me just say, it's not just flight attendants. It is millions of transportation workers who stand with federal workers in this fight for justice. Greg Regan is the president of the Transportation Trades Department, representing millions of transportation workers. Greg.
All right, thank you. As Sarah mentioned, I'm Greg Regan, president of the Transportation Trades Department, AFL-CIO. We represent 39 unions across all modes of transportation, public sector and private sector. And Sarah did an excellent job of highlighting the problems and the risks associated with aviation and what happens there. But this is about safety and about project delivery across the country. Every single American that relies on our infrastructure system, on our transportation, is being affected by this, by ways they understand and that are obvious and ways they may not see. We're talking about delays of projects of national importance like Gateway, that is the busiest rail corridor in the country. We're talking about massive planning projects that are being delayed. We're talking about safety inspections, not just the TSA workers and the air traffic controllers and the safety specialists, inspectors. All of those are being impacted negatively, but also railroad inspections, also transit projects. The American people and the workers who keep this country running are being held hostage by a political dispute, by a petty political dispute that they have nothing to do with. This is entirely vindictive, and the only victims are going to be this country. We've all seen the reports. Every single time we go through this stupid process of a shutdown, how much the American taxpayers lost because of the shutdown. It costs us money just to restart everything. It is a drain on our economy. It's a drain on our safety. It's a drain on the people that live here. So we need to put this to an end. Get serious about negotiating. Get serious about solving problems. Get as serious as the federal employees who are out there every single day going to work with the uncertainty of not knowing when they're going to get paid. We need the members of Congress to do the exact same thing and get serious about putting our people first. Putting federal employees first, putting taxpayers first, putting safety first. All of that is at risk right now, and with every second, every minute, every hour that this goes on, we put all of these systems further at risk. So get serious. Get to the table. There is a solution right in front of us. We should not be putting other people at risk. We should not be putting federal employees under all this strain, and we should have some continuity and certainty in the largest government in the world. We are the richest government in the world. Let's act like it. Let's start actually doing our jobs. And let's put the American people first. With that, I would like to introduce the National Association of Government Employees Federal Division Director, Lee Blackman.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, President Kelly, for scheduling this very important press conference. My name is Lee Blackman. As stated, I'm the director of the National Association of Government Employees, SAIU Federal Division. NAGE was founded nearly 65 years ago to give federal employees at the Charleston Navy Shipyard a voice in the workplace. Today, we proudly represent more than 100,000 workers across the federal, state, municipal, and private sectors. Federal employees are hard-working public servants, not this pawn in anyone's political game. Using a government shutdown to threaten permanent job cuts is unprecedented, cruel, and deeply harmful. Not only do workers put American people who depend on vital services at risk. A normal shutdown means that paychecks for furloughed employees until Congress restores funding. But what this administration is proposing goes even further. A reduction in force is not temporary. It's a permanent job loss, the loss of benefits, disrupted careers, and devastating and harms families and communities. Federal agencies and their employees are already stretched to a breaking point. Recent cuts, the deferred resignation, agency restructurings have already weakened critical public services. And now the administration is threatening to go even further, violating the law by refusing to pay employees as required under the Employee Fair Protection Act of 2019, signed, please note, signed by President Trump after his first 35-day shutdown that year. But enough is enough. As everyone here has already said, we are calling on Congress to do their job, reach a bipartisan funding agreement that protects Americans, respects federal workers, and ends this ridiculous shutdown immediately. Enough is enough. We've seen enough of this. So the men and women who serve this country every day deserve respect, stability, and fair treatment, not this political punishment. So thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to, of course, introduce the Assistant General Counsel, President of Government Affairs and Political Action, Chris Blue Bartley.
Good morning. Again, my name is Chris Bartley with the International Association of Firefighters. And this morning, for the 8th day, thousands of federal firefighters have showed up to work this morning knowing they won't be paid due to this government shutdown. What's happening in D.C. right now is a textbook example of political gamesmanship. When lawmakers use shutdowns and brinkmanship as leverage, it's not just abstract policy, it hits real people. Like federal firefighters who show up to protect our military bases and other critical federal facilities without pay. These games have consequences. Families go without incomes. Morale and retention suffer. Public safety is compromised. The IFF is calling for a clean, continuing resolution because it's not about politics, it's about responsibility.
That's right.
Federal firefighters are doing their jobs. Congress needs to stop playing games and do theirs.
Yes.
So we ask to end this shutdown. Now I want to bring up next speaker, AFT Executive Vice President Evelyn De Jesus.
All right, Evelyn.
Buenos dias. How we doing? My name is Evelyn De Jesus, and I serve as the Executive Vice President right next door at the AFT, whose 1.8 million members, including the leaders here with me today, work in education, healthcare, and public services, and we also have federal employees in all 50 states and in Puerto Rico. And I'm also National President of LACLA, and I want to say that, make no mistake, we've heard about the safety issues. We heard about the firefighters. We heard about how can we make America safe again?
Yeah.
So let's be clear. Make no mistake, Republicans shut down the government because Democrats would not agree to take away health care for millions of working people and families, raising their costs. Democrats voted to fund the government, not to defund health care. Right now, people's premiums are about to explode, can you imagine, by thousands of dollars because of the big, ugly bill, which ripped $911 billion out of Medicaid, with 60 million Americans set to lose their insurance at ACA premiums, spiking it up to 75%. Republicans, they control the House. They control the Senate. They control the White House. They choose to shut down the government down rather than pass a budget that serves the American people. The American people support a bipartisan budget that doesn't eliminate tax credits or health care or give new tax breaks to corporations and to the wealthy. We call on those in power. Negotiate a solution, one that protects health care, lowers everyday costs, reopens the government, and helps rather than hurts the American people. Let's make America safe again. Let's make America the land of the free and the brave. Let's make America the place where everybody wants to come to and everyone wants to live. Labor's in the house, and we're together. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I want to introduce my brother, National Federation of Federal Employees, National President Randy Irwin. Come on down.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Despite this rain, I'm going to persevere.
All right.
So I'm the National President of NEFI, National Federation of Federal Employees, represent 110,000 federal workers nationwide. First, I want to thank federal employees for the incredible work that they do every single day. They're keeping our military ready, caring for our cherished veterans, caring for all of our national parks and forests and lands, maintaining our national security, and literally countless other essential tasks that the American people rely on. So I'm proud to be here with all my friends here in labor today. Wow. Thank you to all these leaders and workers from all of these different sectors standing in solidarity with federal employees. You know, we can't thank you enough for that.
I'm elating our postal workers right now.
So our hardworking civil servants and the American people who rely on their work every day, they deserve better than what they are getting from their elected leaders in this country right now. Once again, our dedicated federal employees, who are the backbone of this country, are being used as political pawns. These are middle-class folks. Nearly 1/3 of federal employees are veterans, and they are being treated like dirt by our elected leaders who cannot seem to do their jobs and reach an agreement on spending. That's their first job to do, and they don't seem to give a damn about it.
Union leaders continuing to speak right now in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, on the floor of the Senate, we are hearing some debate on a number of different topics and expecting a vote at some point on the funding bills that would end the government shutdown. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this. And as we go to break here, let me give you a live look at downtown Orlando on this Wednesday morning. Keep it right here. More to come. Fox 35 storm team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, we've been talking a lot about the impacts of the rain and the king tide.
Yes, and the king tide is high today. It's going to be even higher tomorrow. But did you know the highest king tide actually comes our way November the 6th? So we're going to have quite a change there to track out in the ocean. So this is the third highest tide of the year. Tomorrow's the second highest tide, and right now we're at high tide. So there's no more Daytona Beach. We're just calling it Daytona. Don't worry, the beach will come back at low tide. We do have some showers moving ashore as well, but overall the rain chance today is at about a 20% shot. We'll top out at 88 degrees under partly to mostly cloudy skies. Then things will calm down tonight. Now tomorrow we're back to the rain chances, and especially Friday, because we'll have a weak disturbance developing south of Florida that'll be moving northward tomorrow, and in doing so enhance our rain chances. So after a couple of showers today, just kind of hit or miss showers from time to time. You can see on future radar they're very few and far between, and mostly along the Atlantic coast. Tomorrow into Friday we'll have a much better shot. Here's a look at Friday's future radar, fast forwarding a couple days. Could be quite wet, maybe a wet morning commute near the coast and a real soaker during the afternoon. Now this is all part of a weather system that's going to head into the Carolinas, and that's a very significant weather system because it's going to produce huge impacts to the Outer Banks and possibly the Tidewater region of Virginia and Maryland. Now, as it passes by for Thursday, Friday, it'll dump between 1 and 2 inches at the coastline with considerably lower levels as you head into Orlando, about 1/10 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch of rain. So kind of like what we had last week and earlier this week, there will be a cutoff of very little rain because it's an ocean-borne storm. But this storm is going to work northward out of Florida into the Carolinas, and in doing so, unlike a tropical system, this is going to just park. And in doing so, we'll have 4 to 5 days of unrelenting northeast winds, eroding waves, as well as higher than normal tides in the Outer Banks, and that's going to be more than enough, unfortunately, to pull more of those homes into the water in places like Buxton, North Carolina, that lost 9 homes during the passage of Imelda and Umberto last week, and the city reports there's 40 more homes teetering on the edge. So this is pretty much the worst case scenario. On top of that, to the east will be future Hurricane Jerry, which may actually feed moisture into the system, making the rain heavier. But it forms Saturday, it lingers into this region through Monday, and may stay through Tuesday or Wednesday. So this is just a long duration, severe erosion event for the Outer Banks of North Carolina, for the beaches of Virginia, like Virginia Beach, as well as the Norfolk area. Norfolk can flood when the tides are higher than normal anyway with king tides. And on top of that, if you have a storm and a northeast flow, that can really inundate the region. They've got floodgates all over Norfolk if you've ever been up that way. For us, though, it's going to bring for Florida a flow from the north, which means that we'll enjoy a cold front. So it's going to be really pleasant for us while all this is happening up there in the mid-Atlantic states. A look at the future wind reveals a lot of red on the map. Red, and where you see the really dark red, that's winds between 40 and 60 miles an hour plus. So this storm will be so powerful that we'll see at least tropical storm force winds, perhaps some gusts approaching hurricane force. A lot of this would stay offshore, but it's going to get those waves really pumping with a swell of between 20 and 40 feet. When that starts to make its way to the beaches, you can have breakers that are well over 15 to 20 feet. So it is going to be a long duration erosion event for the Northeast. Meanwhile, look at what happens to our neck of the woods as you see autumn air rolling in this weekend, dry air surging in, that dark blue representing very low humidity. It's going to feel great starting this weekend and continuing into next week with lows in the 60s at night and highs in the lower to middle 80s. Here's a look at average overnight lows from Sunday through Tuesday. We're calling it the autumn ah. It really will be that nice with lows in the mid-60s for Orlando and an end to the humidity, at least for now. Now, this is not going to last for long. We'll get back to the muggy weather before it really is all said and done for the season come mid-November. But until then, it's a preview. 88 degrees will be the high today in Orlando, closer to 85 at the beaches. But let's talk tropics. We've got a system out there. This is Jerry, a tropical storm, poorly organized at this time with most of the thunderstorm activity offset from its center to the east, thanks to a strong westerly wind shear. But this system will be moving westward, slowly gaining strength, and ultimately by early next week reaching Category 1 strength, coming very close to the islands of the leewards and eventually peeling off and missing the U.S., but coming close to Bermuda. The spaghetti models take this within 100 miles of Antigua and Barbuda, as well as Anguilla, which means that those areas in the northern leewards could see tropical storm force or hurricane force winds as soon as this Friday. So a lot of the cruises are already diverting from ports of call like St. Martin. And that's that area of the northern leewards. It could also impact Bermuda this weekend, but that chance is going to be on the lower side. As far as intensity goes, we're going to see an intensity forecast, though, of Jerry, which could exceed Category 3 levels. That would be a major hurricane, but only a couple of models suggest that. The official National Hurricane Center intensity guidance, looking ahead for the next 5 days, as you go to the right on that chart, that's a day, like 24, 48, 72 hours, keeps it as a Cat 1. But we've got a couple of models that suggest it could get a little bit stronger than that. Okay, locally here, we're going to have our rain chances increasing tomorrow and Friday. And then ultimately, after this muggy end to the work week, we'll sample that very nice dry air for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday with a bit of a breeze. So a lot to look forward to from the perspective of Florida, but from a weather perspective and for the weather story for the East Coast, there will be some really big impacts and unfortunately more pictures of houses likely falling into the ocean.
It's crazy to see that.
It is. It's
Brooks,
like they're standing on toothpicks.
Yeah.
What always strikes me is that you can have like an oil rig in the middle of the Gulf that's in 5,000 feet of water and it stands for decades. And then you have a home built on a sandbar and it falls down inside of 50 years. Of course, different construction standards, but it really almost takes that industrial piling to allow anything to survive the rage of the Atlantic.
Gosh, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Garrett. My pleasure.
And here's a live look right now from our Launch Credit Union camera in Titusville, looking toward Cape Canaveral's Kennedy Space Center. We know that a lot of places in Brevard County have had quite a bit of rain, and with the rainy weather and the king tides that we're dealing with this week, they've seen some flooding waters that have trapped people living near the Indian River inside their homes. And, you know, the folks we've talked to who live there say they deal with flooding from time to time, especially during hurricane season, but the rain, they say it really just hasn't stopped this week, and that king tide is making it worse. And Fox 35's Amanda Ruiz shows us what some of those folks are dealing with.
Yeah, our weather team told us the king tides are supposed to be coming in right about now, and you can see the water lapping up as we speak. We can see, at first when I first got here, the water was quite still, but now it's starting to pick up a little bit, and then more flooding is expected to happen, which is hard to believe because if we take a look at this road, they don't need any more flooding. This is a main road in the area, and a lot of cars have been driving through it, not because they want to, it's because they have to. This is a main road that is in Cocoa to get outside, and you can see that cars are trying to avoid it, but when you think about it, this is the only way to get to their homes or the only way to get out of the work, so they're frustrated. They want the change to happen. Residents are literally trapped inside their neighborhoods because of the flood, and there's numerous spots around the Indian River that are submerged under several inches of water, and that's because this flooding that keeps on happening. There wasn't even any rain on the area even on Tuesday, but the flooding persists, and it's all coming from this lagoon. Neighbors tell us they are tired of fighting with the county for help, and they say the road needs to be raised now.
Yesterday when the mail truck didn't show up, I knew we were in trouble. I mean, we can't even get mail. It's 2025. This is ridiculous.
Elevate the road, yes.
And we're walking this way because as I was just about to go live, I saw something really interesting over here. But before I get to that, we talked to county officials, and those county officials told me that they're working on separating budgeting for certain things, so that way they can focus the budgeting on roads like this because they feel like they're not budgeted correctly, and that's right. And you can see the dock here right now. The water is just coming from that lagoon at such an aggressive rate, and it's just supposed to pick up because those high tides are coming in at the peak currently. And again, these people are frustrated. They say that hurricane season, they expect this kind of thing, but not when it rains for a couple of days. This is too much, and they hope that the county takes this as a sign to fix these roads.
It was Fox 35's Amanda Ruiz reporting in Brevard County. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Some theme park news today. Some news about Disney, and not all of it is good, and at least not for your wallet. But here to break down all of it for us is Drew Smith. You know him as Drew, the Disney dude. Drew, always good talking with you, and we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Yeah, like you said, some unfortunate topics today, but there are some great things to talk about. So we can balance it out with the not so fun and the very fun. But yeah, we can dive into it, and definitely important to talk about all of the stuff for especially the locals out here who visit Walt Disney World so often.
Yeah, let's start by talking about the price increase that was announced, and what folks need to know about that.
Yeah, so just a little bit of backstory here as to every October, this is unfortunately something that we can expect with Walt Disney World, Disneyland, pretty much Disney parks as a whole, as Disney's new fiscal year begins. And with that, we see a lot of money spent in Disney parks. So for example, with all of the projects in development right now, like Cars and Villains over at Magic Kingdom, Monsters Inc. over at Hollywood Studios, and the Tropical Americas at Animal Kingdom, well, we're going to see a lot of money spent on those projects, which is great because we want those things to open and to enjoy those in the future. But as Disney starts to spend more in the parks, well, we take some of that with the price increases across the resort. So that includes annual passes, parking, food, merchandise, pretty much anything that you could experience at Walt Disney World. Chances are the prices just went up this morning at about 6 a.m., which is unfortunate. You know, I never love price increases, but it's a part of this. And the big thing that I'm thinking about is the economy right now. We're not in a strong point with the economy. So this year, I think it's going to hit harder than ever. And just the fact that there's a lot of negativity in the world. So people use Walt Disney World as an escape from that. When it becomes unaffordable for some families, I always hate to see that. It always makes me sad. And that's why I try to be self-aware as a local that we're kind of blessed to be so close to the parks where, you know, we can just grab an annual pass and go, whereas some families traveling in are spending thousands of dollars. But for all the locals, I want to talk about like those main things, mainly the annual passes, especially for all the locals. Like I just mentioned, the Pixie Dust Pass was $469. Now is going to $489. Pirate Pass $829, now it's going to $869. Sorcerer Pass was $1079, and now it's $1099. The Incredipass was $1549, and now it's $1629. Also, standard parking has gone from $30 to $35, and the peak price for Lightning Lane Multipass has gone from $39 to $45. So yeah, these things, they're not great. I will say though, for the parking, if you guys are interested, one of my biggest tips I will always say is park at Disney Springs. It is completely free to park at Disney Springs. You'll never run into any issues with security, with some of those parking lots being restricted at the resorts. So you can kind of avoid that parking fee by going to Disney Springs, taking a bus, and if you go to any resort, you can then take a bus and go to any park. But yeah, the annual pass prices, I don't like to see. I don't like to see any of it. It's unfortunate. But Disney did drop some good news that we can talk about next on some improvements at the parks, which is always great. If the prices are going to go up, I think the absolute bare minimum is to improve the guest experience.
Do you think the price hike impacts attendance at all?
It's always something that I think about. I've always wondered, when are we going to hit a breaking point where people don't pay anymore? You know, I always see online this vocal group of people saying Disney's this, Disney's that, but like just recently, this last quarter was Walt Disney World's best financial quarter on record in the resort's 54-year history. I think Disney has done a lot to increase per guest spending to where they have less people in the parks, but everyone in the parks is spending more money. Part of these price increases being a part of that. I just wonder, when are we going to hit a breaking point where you can't do this anymore? I was hoping that would have already happened. You know, if you look back at some of the ticket prices back from, you know, when even my parents were kids, and they always tell me how cheap it used to be the end of the parks, and the parks were open until 2 a.m. and all these things, how things have changed over the last few decades. I definitely am concerned for the future, because I feel like as these major offerings open, they're just going to want to make even more money. You know, by the time Magic Kingdom has Villains Land, you know, 2029 to 2030, whenever that might be, there's going to be thousands of families wanting to come to Walt Disney World to experience all these new things, because Villains Land is kind of going to wrap up this 5 years of investment, and people are going to want to experience those things. So I feel like Disney's probably already thinking, well, how can we charge even more money? You know, 5 years from now, I don't even want to think about how expensive it's going to be. And that's where the side of me being such a big Disney fan is, I always like to be positive and optimistic. But when it comes to the price increases, there's really not much to be positive about.
And at the same time, you know, we talk about some of the reasons for that, and we'll dive into that in just a second. But right now there are construction walls up a lot of places. There are a lot of things that are, kind of closed down right now. And also we've seen Disney get rid of some perks for those annual pass holders and those kinds of things. And so, we're seeing some response from folks on social media kind of saying, well, we've got less to work with here, and yet you're charging us more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why something that I always think about as a content creator and someone who follows this stuff so closely is never speak for other people. Everyone's own perception is their reality. And that's why I think if people were just a lot more respectful with each other and understood where people were coming from, to your point, Garrett, yeah, it's a very valid point, and that's something that even with one of my recent YouTube videos, I had a comment on someone saying, is it even worth to go to Magic Kingdom right now? And I'm like, well, a few years from now, Magic Kingdom is arguably going to be one of the best theme parks in the world with its offerings and not only those classic things that we've already had before, but with all of the new updates. There is so much money and love being put into Magic Kingdom over the next few years, which I'm very, very excited for. But in the meantime, 2026, 2027, there's a lot of things that are down. Even right now, we have Big Thunder Mountain Railroad closed. We have Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin closed. Up next, you're going to have Cinderella Castle covered in scaffolding as they repaint it back to its classic colors. Then at some point, Carousel of Progress is going to go down. I'm hoping Carousel of Progress doesn't go down until Big Thunder Mountain and Buzz reopen. But yeah, I think that's the absolute best point to make right now. How can Disney justify increasing prices when Magic Kingdom has so many things closed, to the point that this entire section you guys are seeing on screen, this is B-roll from 2024, but there's walls along the entirety from Haunted Mansion all the way to Big Thunder Mountain as they start work on Cars and Villains. So yeah, we're living through a very interesting time. We saw this happen before with Hollywood Studios, where the park was undergoing its massive transformation, and the prices never went down there. So I think if people just speak with their wallets rather than talking online, that's going to send the message to Disney. You have to speak with your wallet, not just vocalize about it.
Now let's get an update, because there was some news on some of those ongoing projects, and got some news today. Let's start with what we know about Zootopia. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so the big update today, that personally I'm a massive fan of animatronics. I think that an attraction can be made by its animatronics because you're there in person, but we've already known that the show opens on November 7th at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and literally moments before I just came on the air with you guys, Walt Disney World announced that annual pass holders can preview this new 4D show on November 5th and November 6th. So there's going to be 2 virtual queue times on both of those days. At 7 a.m., you have to have a reservation for Disney's Animal Kingdom to have a chance to join the queue. But at 1 p.m., you just need to have that annual pass holder ticket. So you have 2 chances to join the virtual queue on November 5th and 6th before the show opens on the 7th. But we also got our first look at Officer Clawhauser, but it's really not Officer Clawhauser here. It's just Benjamin Clawhauser here, who is joining us for this Zootopia Day celebration. Whenever we walk into the theater, he's going to be right there where the Hopper animatronic used to be in the It's Tough to Be a Bug show. But I love animatronics so much, and seeing that they've actually improved this figure compared to Shanghai Disneyland, he had digital eyes. Here, his eyes are physical. So just the fur, the detail, seeing an incredible animatronic on that scale, it's really cool to see, and I'm looking forward to checking him out in just less than a month now.
Yeah, and we also got some new details about changes coming to Frozen Ever After at Epcot.
Yeah, this is a big one. I was not expecting this. I did not know this was coming, but in early 2026, Frozen Ever After's animatronic figures are going to be updated to what you guys are seeing on screen right now. We saw these figures debut in 2023 over at Hong Kong Disneyland with the fully articulated sculpted faces. The digital faces are going to be replaced here at Walt Disney World. We don't have an exact date on if the attraction is going to close for a short refurbishment. If this is going to somehow be done overnight, we don't have those details yet. But beginning in early 2026, this is a massive update to Frozen Ever After. I think it's going to get a lot of people wanting to go on this attraction again now that it's been open for almost 10 years, which is insane to say, but it's really going to make these characters feel more realistic compared to the technology from 2016 that's now outdated.
Yeah, what does that do to the experience on that ride, do you think, with the new animatronics?
Yeah, it just breathes so much life into it, and this is something that people actually have been asking for, but I never paid any attention to it because I never thought that it would happen. I'm like, there's no way that Disney's going to go into Frozen Ever After and spend money on something that they don't have to do. But they're doing it, and I'm actually happy about that. But at the same time, again, when you're increasing prices every single year, I almost feel like this is the bare minimum of showing that you're still committed to improving the parks. Not necessarily a major new land like we're seeing at Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom, but the fact that you're actually improving something that people have loved for almost a decade now, and it's actually going to get me to even go on this ride more. I don't even remember the last time I went on Frozen because I just don't love the screen faces on the animatronics for that exact reason. But knowing that we're going to get that feeling from Hong Kong and Paris and Tokyo here in Epcot on the original Frozen attraction, it's great to see.
All right, and finally, Drew, some new information about Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets.
Yeah, so another positive update here that Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets is opening in summer of 2026. I was not expecting Imagineering to be able to get this reimagining done as quickly as they're going to, but it's also important to know that we don't have the closing date for Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith yet. We know it's closing in 2026, and somehow it's going to reopen in summer of 2026. So this is going to be a very quick turnaround time, this reimagining with the Muppets. We know the storyline is going to feature us going with the Electric Mayhem to get to their biggest concert ever, following some of that same DNA we have with Rock and Roller Coaster now. But yeah, summer 2026, it's going to be fun, and that's definitely a big offering next summer here at Walt Disney World.
Well, Drew, a lot of things to talk about with the parks, as it always seems like there is, and we appreciate you joining us this morning to break those changes down for us.
Happy to join. Thank you guys for bringing me on.
Drew Smith at Drew Disney Dude on social media. You can follow him there. Drew, good talking with you. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to get you now to Tallahassee, where we are seeing the the Florida House Healthcare Facilities and Systems Subcommittee holding a interim committee meeting right now, talking about a number of different things. This is Representative Robin Bartleman, who is a Democrat from Weston, Florida. They heard a presentation from the Agency on Healthcare Administration about a couple of different things. One of the big things that we heard today was a briefing on the Medicaid-related provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill, talking about what the impacts of that are. And the state lawmakers are now having the chance to ask some questions about that. And we're just talking a moment ago about the impacts on rural hospitals in Florida. So let's go ahead and listen in here for a few minutes as this committee meeting continues live in Tallahassee.
Job is to fight those denials, but also anticipate those denials. And where I have been most successful with my cancer practice is based on history. If we know we're getting denials on certain biomarkers, we've got our financial reps. We already have a letter written for prior authorization. I have found the peer-reviewed PubMed publications to append to that letter of medical necessity, and all of that goes out even before the order goes. And we have that for all of the common biomarker tests that I order, as well as the off-label drug uses that I have. A good practice knows to do that. They already know to do that. And so we've communicated with our managed care plans that we want outreach to our provider networks.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us and giving us this briefing. Members, we're going to move into our last item on the agenda, which is also an oversight issue. Deputy Secretary Meyer is going to brief us on the status of ACA's implementation of the new requirement to cover whole genome sequencing. This requirement was passed in the 2023 budget and originated from a bill that I originally sponsored. Deputy Secretary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Anderson, members of the committee, for the opportunity, again, to kind of give an implementation update on the Andrew John Anderson Rapid Whole Genome Sequencing Program. I was here in the same spot earlier this year, providing an update also on this program. So, I'm hopeful that we're able to demonstrate progress with respect to this oversight and really hope that we're implementing this as intended by the legislatures. So as Chair Anderson mentioned, back in 2023, Senate Bill 2500 required the Agency for Healthcare Administration to add rapid whole genome sequencing. Throughout this presentation, we'll abbreviate it as small r capital WGS as it covers their.
So they are moving on to some different issues right now in this hearing, but it is just one of several committee meetings that is going on today in Tallahassee as a number of these committees meet in the interim. The committee meeting started, the interim committee period started this week, and I'm trying to count, it looks like 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, more than a dozen hearings or committee meetings today going on. We've got several on our kind of planner here and on our radar. This was one of them, the Healthcare Facilities and Systems Subcommittee. One of the other ones was a Florida House Government Operations Subcommittee that talked about election preparations and security, and also continuing elections during natural disasters and some of those operations aspects of things. We'll hear more on that coming up in just a little bit. Also want to, one more that's on our radar for later this afternoon that we will likely have coverage of tomorrow on Fox 35 News Plus, and that's the House Human Services Subcommittee that was similarly looking at the impacts of the Big Beautiful Bill, but instead of on Florida Medicaid, looking at that on SNAP and what that impact looks like on Florida families. So we're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes, continuing to monitor a lot of things, including on Capitol Hill, a live look at the U.S. Senate floor where some votes are underway. We've seen a debate as well as lawmakers consider funding the government and reopening after a government shutdown. Today is day 8 of that, and we will see where things happen, or see where things go with that and what happens this afternoon. So we're going to take a quick break here on Fox Local, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here. We appreciate you joining us. I want to get you to this news conference that is going on, or about to begin right now, actually, live in Los Angeles. The Department of Justice getting ready to announce that an arson suspect has been arrested in connection with starting the Palisades fire, that devastating fire that killed 12 people. You remember some of the images. But let's go ahead and listen in. I know this is something of national interest. Let's go ahead and listen in at this news conference live from Los Angeles.
Burned down the Palisades earlier this year, killing 12 people, destroying more than 6,800 structures, both homes and businesses, and damaging over 1,000 more buildings. The complaint unsealed today charges the defendant with destruction of property by means of fire, a felony that carries a mandatory minimum 5-year federal prison sentence and is punishable by up to 20 years in federal prison. The defendant was arrested yesterday on a federal criminal complaint near his Florida residence, and he's expected to make his initial appearance today in the federal court in Orlando, Florida. I stress that the complaint contains allegations and every defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The allegations in the affidavit are supported by digital evidence, including the defendant's ChatGPT prompt of a dystopian painting showing in part a burning forest and a crowd fleeing from it. And we're going to put that up on the screen here once we get that going. The allegations are, there it is. That's from his ChatGPT. That's an image he produced a few months before the fire started. It shows the city being burned there. The allegations are further supported by the defendant's cell phone, his false statements to law enforcement, and his behavior during the Lockman fire, which the defendant is charged with maliciously starting shortly after midnight on New Year's Day of this year, and which eventually became the Palisades fire. Late last New Year's Eve, Rinderknecht returned to Pacific Palisades after working the evening shift as an Uber driver. 2 of his passengers told law enforcement that he appeared agitated and angry that night. After dropping off a passenger in Pacific Palisades, Rinderknecht parked his car and tried and failed to contact a former friend. He exited the car, walked up a nearby trail, took iPhone videos at a nearby hilltop, and listened to a rap song whose music video including objects being lit on fire. The defendant had listened to this song and watched its music video repeatedly in the days leading up to the Lockman fire. 12 minutes into the new year, environmental sensing platforms indicated that a fire had started. It took the defendant several tries to contact 911 to report the fire. He fled the scene in his car, but turned around after passing fire engines driving in the opposite direction to fight the fire. While the Lockman fire burned, the defendant walked up the same trail from earlier that night to watch the fire and firefighters, using his iPhone to take short videos of the scene. Although firefighters suppressed the blaze, the fire continued to smolder and burn underground within the root structure of the dense vegetation. So that fire started on January 1st, and it smoldered underground for about a week until on January 7th, heavy winds caused this underground fire to surface and spread above ground, causing what became known as the Palisades Fire, one of the most destructive wildfires in Los Angeles city history. Law enforcement got to work and by January 24th had identified and interviewed the defendant. During his interview, he lied about where he was when he first saw the Lockman fire, claiming he was near the bottom of a hiking trail. Geolocation data for the 911 calls showed that he was standing above the fire in a clearing merely 30 feet from the blaze as it rapidly grew. As the world watched in horror as the Palisades fire burned, victims perished in the smoke and flames. Homes where cherished family memories and belongings were turned to rubble and ash. the iconic Pacific Coast Highway along Malibu looked like a war zone. Thousands of people were forced to evacuate. Though homes and businesses cannot be rebuilt, this arrest, we hope, will provide a measure of justice to all those who were impacted. We're going to do questions at the end, and we're going to get into more detail, but I want to thank the outstanding partnership we had in getting this case to where it's at. Thanks to the work of the ATF and investigative support from both the LAPD and the Los Angeles Fire Department and the U.S. Forest Service for their hard work in this investigation. I'm going to turn it over now to Kenny Cooper, who's the special agent in charge of the ATF Los Angeles Field Office.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Cooper. I'm the special agent in charge of ATF's Los Angeles Field Division. Today marks a significant moment in a long road to justice for our community. After more than 8 months of tireless, meticulous work, I stand here with our partners, proud to announce an arrest in connection to the devastating Palisades fires that claimed lives, destroyed homes, and shook this community to its core. Jonathan Rindernesh, age 29, residing in Melbourne, Florida, was taken into federal custody by ATF special agents, a Los Angeles City Fire Department investigator, and a Los Angeles police detective. This partnership and arrest is significant in the three agencies working hand in glove to get this investigation to where it is. Rinderneck, as the U.S. Attorney mentioned, is charged under Title 18-844F, malicious destruction by means of a fire of real property owned by an organization receiving federal financial assistance. I know this community has endured a long wait for answers. Families have carried an unmanageable grief, and an entire community has been left to heal while living with questions. Although we cannot share every detail of this investigation, it is still an active investigation, and judicial proceedings remain ahead. I can tell you this, from day one, ATF and our partners have been relentless. We made a promise to find answers, and we have kept that promise. To give you a sense of the work, I want to highlight the extraordinary level of cooperation between ATF and our partners. The Los Angeles City Fire Department, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Orange County Fire Authority, and the United States Forest Service. LA City Fire asked for our assistance, and within 24 hours, ATF's National Response Team arrived on scene. The NRT, ATF's NRT, is an elite team comprised of certified fire investigators, electrical and fire protection engineers, chemists, accelerant detection canine teams, and other experts. We arrived within 24 hours and got to work with our partners. We processed hundreds of acres of damaged fire, examining every inch for the smallest clue. Over the course of the last 8 months, investigators conducted hundreds of interviews, including witnesses overseas, and pursued more than 200 leads. We collected more than 13,000 items of evidence, including fire debris, digital data, DNA samples, all analyzed by ATF's state-of-the-art forensic lab. Our team carried out 500 scientific tests, supported by ATF's Fire Research Lab, the nation's only large-scale fire science lab dedicated to fire investigations. More than 10 of our top engineers and support staff contributed to this laboratory analysis. This investigation has been documented over 300 ATF reports, including a 200-page report detailing the origin and cause of this investigation. ATF technical surveillance specialists were integral in reviewing approximately 1.5 million phone records and data extracted from digital evidence. And I highlight this because I know there's questions on the length that it took us to come to this conclusion. But we were reviewing a lot of evidence from one of the most catastrophic fires in the U.S. history. Through this extraordinary team effort, investigators determined that the Palisades fire reported on January 7th was caused by an intentionally set fire near a viewpoint along the Temescal Ridge Trail in Topegna State Park on January 1st. The fire was a holdover fire, meaning it was deeply seated in dense vegetation and roots and continued to burn undetected until catastrophic weather ensued, resulting in the Palisades fire. Rendernesh is now charged with setting the January 1 fire. We know this arrest cannot erase the pain or grief or losses endured, but we hope it is a step forward. It is proof that justice will not be forgotten, that our accountability will be pursued by ATF and our partners, no matter how complex the investigation and no matter how long it takes. To the families who lost so much, we hear you, we honor you, and we will continue to fight for you. The ATF established an email address for the victims and witnesses to contact ATF Victim Witnesses Assistance Program through the Palisades@atf.gov. Once again, I'll say that, the Palisades@atf.gov. Based on the information received, a regional victim witness specialist may contact you. That's my initial statement. I'm going to hand it over to the Chief of LA Police Department, Chief McDonald, and I will be open to questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I want to begin by thanking the U.S. Attorney's Office, our partners at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the dedicated men and women of our Robbery Homicide Division and Major Crimes Division. I also want to recognize and thank the Los Angeles City Fire Department and all of the investigators who came together to support this case. You look at the team standing here, and I couldn't be more proud of the work that was done throughout this investigation. It was extremely intensive and thorough, and the best of the best were working on it, and I'm very thankful for the partnership we enjoy with all of them all the time. The investigation into the Palisades fire of January 2025 was lengthy, complex, and as I mentioned, extremely thorough. Our detectives responded immediately to the initial incident and worked side by side with our partners at the Los Angeles Fire Department, and once the ATF's National Response Team took on the case, they led the investigation, and our detectives remained fully engaged as partners every step of the way with them. I'm proud of the professionalism and dedication shown by our detectives and the team who work collaboratively with our federal, state, and local partners. That teamwork ultimately led to the arrest of the suspect responsible for this devastating crime. The Palisades fire was a tragedy that caused enormous harm to the city of Los Angeles, but in the midst of that devastation, we saw something else. Communities coming together with law enforcement, supporting one another, and working through a very, very difficult time. This case is a reminder of the value of strong partnerships across every level of government. When we stand together, local, state, and federal, we are stronger, more effective, and better able to deliver justice for our communities. I'm deeply grateful to everyone who contributed to this investigation, and I look forward to continuing this strong spirit of collaboration as we work to keep Los Angeles safe. Thank you. I'll now turn it back over to U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley.
We will be unsealing the complaint if it hasn't been already. It has much more details than what we've gone over today in there, and that'll be available to you. At this time, we will take a few questions. Okay, we'll start there.
How did Renderneck start the fire, and in the investigation, as investigators spoke to him, what did he specifically say was the reason?
I'm not going to get into his specific statements. I can tell you ATF has determined that the fire was ignited with an open flame. Yeah.
Did this gentleman ever live in the Palisades, have any direct connection to the Palisades? Was he familiar with these trails, this area?
Yeah, he was familiar with this particular neighborhood, and he had a friend who was who lived in this neighborhood. So he knew this neighborhood.
He never specifically lived there?
He was a resident of Southern California. Do we know what city he lived in? Or? Okay. Yeah, he actually did live in Palisades, and he was familiar with the neighborhood in which this started.
We know that firework. The word arson?
Yes, he's arson. Yes.
We know that fireworks.
Okay, let me go here.
What was the protocol taken around the initial fire on New Year's Day? Was there precautions taken to try and make sure that fire was put out properly? And that's quite a
Yeah.
when that ended and then the next fire.
Yeah, we're not going to get into the full fire response. I'll just tell you the fire department did respond, and they don't say they put out fires, they suppress the fire. So they use the best of their abilities at that time to suppress it. Like we said, there was dense vegetation. The fire went underground, and you know, I'm not a fire expert, but there's only so much apparently you can do about that. So it did smolder there until a week later, in which the winds picked up and reignited. So that's our understanding of it started. Let me go for it here.
So did he move to Florida after this?
He relocated, yes.
Can you say a little bit more about what he was doing there? If you had been living in Palisades, was he camping? Was he hiking? Was he?
He just finished an Uber drive. So he just dropped someone off in that vicinity on an Uber drive. He was an Uber driver. He dropped someone off. He was in this neighborhood, and he was, this is New Year's Eve, so it was around midnight, and he went up to this hilltop. And at some point up there, around 12 a.m., he ignited a fire.
Residents that we spoke with reported and had video of fireworks during that same period of time. Initially, the belief was it was a group of kids that were there. Are you saying that the suspect here potentially set off those fireworks? You saying open flame?
We have no evidence that any fireworks were set off in this area at the time the fire ignited.
Does he have prior criminal history, and has he been cooperative in this process?
Does he have his criminal history? Does he have criminal history? Yeah, he does not have criminal history. We're not going to get into his specific statements. We are going to tell you, though, that he did speak to us and he made false statements. So that we will confirm.
What about motive? You do have something for
Yeah.
on the phone that you shared, any indication of what?
We're not going to get into motive right now because we're going to have to prove this case in court in front of a jury, and we don't want to get into that right now. We are laying out the information we have in the complaint. The evidence is based on, you could see some of the key evidence, including the fact that he was the only person in this location at the time this fire ignited. We have no other indication that any other person was there. There were no fireworks at the time. We have several cameras in the vicinity that are there designed to detect fires, and this fire was detected almost right away by those sensors. So there's no indication of fireworks or other things that would have started this. He was the only person there. You heard about this music video and song he would listen to, which had imagery of fires. And then, do we have the image up? Are we having trouble with that? And you could see some of his thought process in the months leading up, where he was generating some really concerning images up on ChatGPT, which appears to show a dystopian city being burnt down. So more evidence will come out at trial, but we're not going to preview the entire case at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Is there an understanding that he relocated to Florida because he was aware that people might be looking for him?
We don't have any information of that.
It's very clear that this was a thorough investigation. The question is, obviously, so many things burned here, right? So how difficult was it to gather evidence? I mean, you're saying 13,000 items were gathered following 200 leads. I mean, can you...
Yeah, I'll let ATF answer that. There was a tremendous amount of work. I mean, we literally have like terabytes of evidence. So I'm going to let ATF answer the work that was done in this case, including the lab work.
Yeah, some further perspective on the investigative process. So I know there's been speculation of other ignition sources. And I just want to assure everyone, ATF did not identify this suspect and focus specifically on this suspect. We still utilize our scientific process. And part of the lengthy time that it took to go over the thousands of acres that were burned is we literally had agents with our partners on their hands and knees crawling through fire debris. They're observing fire behavior patterns. They're flagging patterns. An example of that, fire will cause natural debris to twist and freeze in a position pointing to the origin. So looking at all those fire patterns, flagging those, ATF was able to zone to specifically get into the origin of where that fire started from. Once they dialed into the origin, using all the investigative techniques that they have, then they start really dialing into that very specific spot that fire was created. An example of a fire research lab, they collected buckets and buckets of debris, flammable materials, natural and otherwise, found within that area, sent it off to a fire research lab. They analyzed data from weather, including humidity, the exact temperature, the exact composition of those natural fuels found at that particular time, January 1st, at that particular time, recreated those environmental factors in our labs using their scientific process, then tested different ignition sources. And that's where 500 tests were conducted at that lab. That review process is then looked at by a panel of our experts in a peer review process to see if the science matches up with the theory and the actual evidence that was collected. I know it was also broadcast. We broadcasted it as a public safety announcement back in spring. We went up and recreated a fire very safely with our partners with LA Fire, using butane and scientific process to create the fire behavior to see, and I'll tell you, to the extent of the scientific expertise that we went through, we recreated it in the exact lunar time that the fire started, meaning the exact size the moon was, and as close to the starlit environment that fire started. So we could recreate scientifically a fire and see how fixed surveillance points saw that fire as it developed from other evidence that we collected, both from witnesses' phones, fixed surveillance points, and other data. We were able to see how that fire behaved, how it grew, the size of that behavior and that fire, and the size that it would be for witnesses to see it and report it. We went through exhaustive efforts to look at potential ignition sources, whether they were fireworks, whether they were down power lines, or any other source of ignition. They went down those investigative paths with exhaustive length to either rule them in or rule them out. With clarity, we know this is an incendiary fire and that the subject that we arrested started it.
Would you say that this subject was obsessed with fire and wanted to do those images?
Once again, that speaks to motive. That's not an element that we need to meet. That will be addressed in the trial. And we do have evidence of that for trial.
What was the rap song?
I'm not going to go into those specifics. I'll just highlight, we're not making a probable cause arrest. This team up here feels that we have met beyond a reasonable doubt. We are confident that the burden of proof by the government on this presumed innocent person will be met in trial.
Based on the AI images that he did show, was it his intent to cause as much destruction to the town? Show the AI images for a reason, so it definitely leads to that impression. I would just like that on the record.
I wish we could get into somebody's head, but we can't. People do evil things for whatever reason. And I'm not going to speculate or go into anything of that. Like, we have evidence of that will be addressed in trial, but evil people do evil things.
Let me answer her real quick. I'll let him answer that in a second. It is a French rap song. I don't speak French, so I'm not going to quote it. But it's a French song. It is in the complaint, and you'll be able to look it up there. We will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he intentionally started this fire, and maliciously. That is what the statute that we charged him requires, and that is what we prove. I'll let you answer her question about the holdover fire. Let him answer.
Your question to a holdover fire. Same principle, same process that ATF went through, is obviously the burn scar and the fire from the initial January 1st Lockman fire was re-examined by our investigators, and with complete certainty they were able to see from the same fire behaviors, from them crawling on their hands and knees, digging up roots, digging up all the evidence, supplying that fuel to the fire research lab. They were able, and also in collaboration of other data and other evidence. We have fixed surveillance points. We have witnesses that were up with their phones. We have a lot of different data that all concluded where this fire started, and the fire behavior from that origin, from that Lockman fire, was clearly established in the Palisades fire.
Were the
he dropped passengers off within the residential area of that area.
2 more questions.
I can answer that. So right now, we've charged him on a criminal complaint. We have not determined all the charges he's going to face. We'll be presenting that evidence to a grand jury, and we will make decisions about additional charges at that time. So this is right now just a criminal complaint. We wanted to arrest him. We wanted to get him into custody, this will go to a grand jury shortly.
Last question.
Did the suspect return back on January 7th? Was he in the area considering he lived in the Palisades during that period?
I don't know that we know that. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. He did go back the same night. So the night he started the fire, he left. As soon as he saw the fire trucks were headed to the location, he turned around and went back up there. And he took some video and watched them fight the fire.
And the charges that you're talking
Last question.
Yeah, just for January 1st, right? He has not been charged with anything for January 7th?
No, he is charged with starting a fire on January 1st, which is the fire that burned down the Palisades. It did take a week to reignite, but he is charged with starting the Palisades fire. He started it on January 1st.
But that's why you got that question about the people who lost their lives in the January 7th fire. Do you expect additional charges for that? To include homicide?
This complaint covers that fire and the damages and deaths that were caused by that fire. As far as what additional charges he will face, we will make those determinations in the coming days. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. The press release is out. The complaint is out. So, and I'll try to get this back.
And a news conference wrapping up at the Department of Justice. Holding that news conference in Los Angeles, you heard the acting U.S. Attorney there, Bill O'Saley, announcing the arrest of a man living in Melbourne, now charged in connection with starting that deadly Palisades fire that happened in Los Angeles over the winter. His name is Jonathan Rinderknecht. He is 29 years old. You see him there in the top left box, now facing charges in connection with that fire. The investigators would not go into any detail about a motive. They have not discussed it, but they do say they have evidence of that for trial. They are confident in their charging decision. Again, Jonathan Rinderknecht, 29 years old. He is living in Melbourne, was arrested at his home there, according to investigators, and he is scheduled to appear in federal court in Orlando about 1 hour from now. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth will be there, where we will hope to check in with her after that when she gets out of the courtroom to see what more we can learn, what happened inside the courtroom. One interesting thing that came out of that news conference as well, and I can show you this from the acting U.S. Attorney's post on X, showing the ChatGPT generated images that were apparently found on his digital devices. An image generated from ChatGPT depicting a burning city. You see that caption in the tweet on X saying, talking about that, and you can see those images for yourself. In that tweet, the acting U.S. Attorney saying, while we cannot undo the damage and destruction that was done, we hope his arrest and the charges against him bring some measure of justice to the victims of this horrific tragedy. Rinderknecht is accused of starting that fire on New Year's Day. They say he was working as an Uber driver at the time, had just dropped someone off, and then went back and started that fire that really began to reignite and go out of control a week later. 12 people died in that. I can show you some of the damages that were caused. Just these are images that you probably remember seeing from this past winter out of California. Just the absolute devastation and destruction from those fires. Apparently, this suspect, Jonathan Rinderknecht, was living in that one of those neighborhoods at the time, accused of starting that fire, and then have since moved to Melbourne, according to investigators. And again, that suspect due in federal court in Orlando this afternoon. We will have much more coverage of this coming up throughout the afternoon here on Fox Local. But again, that breaking news we did bring to you live here this afternoon, that a Florida man now charged with starting that deadly wildfire in California. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon now, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Continuing to track the impacts right now of the government shutdown. I want to give you a live look at the floor of the U.S. Senate, where some votes are expected today to potentially reopen the government. We will see. It is certainly day 8 now of that government shutdown. We heard earlier from House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking to reporters about this as this stretches in now to a second week. Here is a little bit of what he had to say.
Don't let the Democrats distract you and try to convince you of things that are not true. Yesterday, or a couple of days ago, Monday, I laid out 6 simple truths about how the Democrats shut down the government, why they did it, and why it is so important for them to come to their senses and turn the lights on. Yesterday, I went through 5 fast facts for you about the shutdown, and I explained, as everyone now knows, Chuck Schumer's desperate attempts to rehabilitate his own image by shutting down the government. Today, we're going to talk about some of the consequences of that shutdown and what it means to real people around this country, real Americans experiencing the devastating cost of their political antics here. And I'm going to read you some sample quotes and headlines that we just collected yesterday from around the country. Here's a headline from The Hill. GOP leaders point to Capitol Police missed paychecks as shutdown drags on. So today, the U.S. Capitol Police officers are going to come to work to bravely protect U.S. government officials and staff in these dangerous times. And they're going to do that without pay. Many Democrats in this chamber, by the way, I want to note, are going to receive paychecks this month while the men and women of the U.S. Capitol Police who are protecting them will not. Here's another headline from the New York Post. Aviation groups warn a government shutdown will delay aircraft safety inspections, maintenance work on critical equipment. While air traffic controllers are going to continue to serve in their posts, thankfully, critical safety inspections are going to stop, increasing risk for air travelers. That affects everybody. Here's another headline from Georgia, local media in Georgia. Central Georgia food banks prepare for surge of new clients during the government shutdown. It's a sad headline. Remember, Georgia's 2 Democrat senators, Warnock and Ossoff, have now voted 5 times to keep the government closed down. 5 times so far. I suspect they may continue, and they're hurting real people in the state of Georgia. Here's one from New Hampshire local media. National parks caught in the crosshairs of government shutdown. Let me point out that both senators from New Hampshire, Senators Shaheen and Hassan, have repeatedly voted to keep the government closed, and New Hampshire's national park sites closed by extension. How about New Jersey? Here's a headline yesterday. Hospital at-home telehealth programs on hold amid government shutdown. You got 2 Democrat senators in New Jersey, Andy Kim and Cory Booker, and they have repeatedly voted against funding these programs, which New Jerseyans rely upon daily. Here's one from Michigan. Michigan nonprofit leaders said a shutdown would be at best disruptive and at worst potentially devastating for local communities. There are 2 Democrat senators in Michigan, Gary Peters and Alyssa Slotkin, and they have voted now 5 times to enable this devastation upon their communities. One more, I could do this all day. Here's one more from CBS News. Government shutdown fears have Colorado food banks bracing for potential new visitors. You guessed it, 2 Democrat senators from Colorado, Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper. They keep voting over and over to keep the government closed. Democrats claim they want to negotiate, but that is already happening in a bipartisan, bicameral fashion. And we brought in the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee this morning, Tom Cole, who can talk more about that. But I just want to say this as I yield to Mr. Cole, and then you'll hear from the rest of the leaders, and I'll take some questions. There is one sad and inescapable fact that no one can forget here. This shutdown is nothing more than political cover for Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. They are worried about the Marxist flanked in their Democrat Party. The Marxists are about to elect a mayor in New York City. That's Chuck Schumer's state, and he's terrified that he's going to get a challenge from his far left. I've noted that Chuck Schumer is a very far left politician, but he's not far enough left for the communists, and they're coming for him. And so he has to put up his dukes and show a fight. So they picked a fight on something that's not even related at all to the shutdown and the funding that we should have gotten done by the end of September. We just need a stopgap measure to give us a little more time to get the job of Congress done. They refuse to do it because they're playing politics, and real Americans are paying the price for it. But let me introduce Chairman Cole, and he can tell you about some of these discussions that have been going on. Mr. Cole?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Usually when I follow the Speaker, I usually think I should just say what he said and excuse myself right away. But in this case, it is pretty easy. I mean, we've had a pretty decent year in the House Appropriations Committee, all 12 bills out of committee before September 30th. 3 that we are in negotiations on with the Democrats. Those negotiations have gone very well. We're prepared pretty quickly to close once the government's reopened. We could get at least 3 bills done. The president could sign them in. Those things would be immune from a shutdown until the following September 30th. Then we'd pick another group of 3 or 4 bills, and then we would do in cooperation with our Democratic colleagues and start working on that. So the process, honestly, was moving along pretty well, and then we had unrelated demands, obviously related to repealing work the Congress had already done on Medicaid, and then these new discussions on subsidies. And I do want to point out, at least the bill we have right now in front of us doesn't even go till December 31st. I mean, these actions would still, we could do this work and still have time to turn around, as the president and our leadership has pointed out in both chambers, and sit down and talk about these other issues. But it's hard to do much when the negotiations aren't happening simply because the government is shut down. So again, we're prepared to work. I've got very talented counterparts on the Democratic side. They're good negotiators. We've negotiated a lot of labor issue bills together between Patty Murray, Rosa DeLauro, and myself, and obviously Susan Collins is one of the best legislators in the building. So it's not like we were going to have a hard time, I think, finding common ground, but you do have to restore the government for that to happen. Democrats are not likely to move bills while they've got the government shut down, because it suggests that absent that, we would be moving through the process as normal, and frankly, in a much better shape than we've been in recent years. So again, I'm just hopeful that my colleagues in the Senate, and it's worth pointing out, a majority of the Senate's already on our side, a bipartisan majority of 55. So this really does get down to Leader Schumer and the bulk of his caucus just simply shutting down the government over items unrelated to what we normally do in appropriations. I've mentioned this to both the Speaker and the Leader because they make these decisions, but you know, we should not be handling Medicaid on my committee. We should not be handling the Obamacare subsidies simply because we don't have the expertise or the jurisdiction to do either one of those things. What we can do is move the bills through the process, make sure that every soldier is paid, make sure that every air traffic controller is paid, make sure that the American people don't lose any services. So we're prepared to do that. Frankly, I think my Democratic colleagues are prepared to do that once we resolve this shutdown, and that's quite simply in the hands of Leader Schumer and the bulk of his caucus. When they make the mind that they want the government up and running, believe me, we'll move very quickly, and we'll try to move away quickly from a CR status to passing bills individually or in small groups, and get folks up and working again, and get the government restored and continue that process as we're supposed to do. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I just yield back.
Well, appreciate the work that Chairman Cole and the Appropriations Committee have done months and months ago to get us in a place where we would be ready to have all of the appropriations in a place where you can negotiate those differences. It was Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries who chose to take their toys and go home, all to appease the most radical elements of the far left, because Chuck Schumer is more concerned about his political job than he is about the jobs of millions of American families. American families' lives are at stake here. Whether or not we're going to be able to pay our troops, whether or not people can get on an airplane and go visit a relative or take a vacation, whatever their plans may have been, are being disrupted. Real lives of real people are being disrupted so that Chuck Schumer can show the far left Marxists in his party that he's having some kind of tantrum and fighting Donald Trump. just said yesterday about why this shutdown is going on. He said, quote, this is a Democrat senator yesterday, "The point of this shutdown is not just suffering for suffering's sake, but to make a point." So you even have Democrat senators admitting that they're imposing suffering on the American people, but they just want to make a point? My God, millions of lives are at stake. They know they're inflicting suffering on the American people so they can make some kind of point? If you want to have a tantrum, this is not the third grade. This is the lives of American people. Real lives are at stake. Real careers and families. Will they be able to pay their house note come the 15th? That's at stake. The safety of our air traffic control system. So that some senator that wants to have a tantrum can make a point? I think the American people are getting sick of this charade that's going on. They know what the Democrats in the House did to shut the government down. But they also know that just 4 senators doing the right thing can turn this around and open the government back up again. And yes, we have big differences on a lot of things that we need to be negotiating on. All those bills that Chairman Cole and his appropriators sent out of committee, you can't have those negotiations while you're in a shutdown. And they know that. But they don't mind inflicting suffering on the American people because they want to make a point. I think the American people are going to start making points. People could pick up the phone and call their Democrat senator. We did a press call yesterday in the states of Georgia and Maryland, where all 4 senators there could literally end this today, but they've all been 5 times voting no on the bill to get the government back open. It was ironic. The Maryland delegation of Democrats held a press conference just days ago talking about how bad a shutdown will be for the state of Maryland. And they're right. The irony is they're the ones who voted to shut it down. Over 150 employees in the state of Maryland alone will be hurt, and their own Democrat delegation is saying how bad it's going to be, yet they're the ones who voted to inflict that, quote, suffering on the people of Maryland. This madness can end. This madness needs to end with sanity finally emerging. Bring some common sense in. And Chuck Schumer, if you can't do the right thing because you're so afraid of your political job, think about the jobs of millions of families out there who don't want to have that suffering inflicted on them. And let 4 other of your Senate Democrat colleagues do the right thing for you. Let's end this. Our whip. Tom Emmer.
Eight days. We are now 8 days into the Democrats' shutdown. 8 days that our troops are not getting paid. Border Patrol agents are going without mission-critical funding. Federal workers are being forced to figure out how they're going to put food on the table for their families. All because Democrats would rather hold the American people hostage to appease their radical base than to pass our clean, nonpartisan government funding bill. As of this morning, Senate Democrats have had 5 opportunities to get the government up and running again for the people they were elected to serve. And the vast majority of them have voted no every single time. Their obstruction is not only a slap in the face to hardworking Americans whose livelihoods are being put at risk due to the Democrats' shutdown, it's also a slap in the face to the constituents who fund their salaries with the expectation that they fulfill their basic constitutional responsibilities. In my hand, I have more than a dozen pages of organizations from across the country representing Americans from every end of the political spectrum, echoing the exact same message. And that message is that government shutdowns solves nothing and hurts everyone. So to our Democrat colleagues in the Senate, enough with the political grandstanding. Do the right and responsible thing by passing the House's clean CR immediately. Americans are already hurting. People's jobs are at stake. You can and must end the political games and reopen the government today. And with that, I turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Good morning, everybody. Again and again, Democrats have chosen to put illegal aliens over hardworking Americans. That is not my opinion. That is fact. Read the bill. Democrats let millions of illegals pour in across our border under Joe Biden. Democrats gave them driver's license. Democrats allowed them to cast ballots in elections. And now Democrats are fighting. They are fighting to give illegals health care on your dime. Democrats want to take money out of your pockets and give them to illegal aliens so they can get government benefits. These aren't my opinions. These are actual facts. Go to the website and read the facts, right? But what Democrats do when they have no plan, no vision, and no leader, they have to misrepresent the truth. And they do that over and over again. And they think you, the American people, aren't going to notice. They're not going to notice. You're not going to notice that they're taking money out of your pockets and giving them to illegals. They're going to try and put their spin on it. But I challenge you, go to the website and read it for yourself. When Democrats have the choice between standing up for American people or catering to the illegal aliens, what do? They choose illegals every single time and time again. And that's exactly what they're doing again in this government shutdown fight. Democrats are putting illegals above American citizens. So I ask the Democrats, how long will it take you to put Americans first in this funding fight? I ask our senators, Senator Peters and Slotkin, when are you going to put the American people first? The people that elected you to represent them. How many times will you vote against our troops? I ask Senator Peters and Senator Slotkin, how many times are you going to vote not to pay our troops? How many times will you vote against moms and babies who rely on WIC? Against flood insurance? How many times will you vote to put illegals first and Americans last? The answer to that question is as long as the radical base keeps calling the shots. My two senators are pandering to their radical base as well. Republicans, however, are actually putting Americans first every single day. And why? Because that's our job. That's our duty. And quite frankly, that is our responsibility. And I call on the Democrats, especially the two Democrats from my state, Senator Peters and Senator Slotkins, please put the American people who you represent first.
We'll take a few questions. Yes, ma'am.
Speaker Johnson, thank you. Do you agree that the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois should be in prison?
Should they be in prison? Should the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois be in prison? I'm not the attorney general. I'm the Speaker of the House, and I'm trying to manage the chaos here. I'm not following the day-to-day on that. I do know that they've resisted the introduction of, or the offering of National Guard troops in Chicago, which is a terribly dangerous city and has been destroyed in the process of being destroyed under liberal Democrat governance and their terrible policies. I would just cite for you in response Exhibit A, which is the District of Columbia. All of you were able to walk safely into the Capitol today, and you can park your cars blocks away and walk back to your cars, and you're not in fear of having your purse snatched or your car being jacked or being assaulted. And why is that? Because President Trump had enough of it. He's a strong leader in the Oval Office, and he used the resources that were available to him, the National Guard, to bring order to the chaos. The Democrat mayor of the District of Columbia ultimately said, thank you so much for the reinforcements, and you're all enjoying the spoils of good policy and return to the rule of law. If we could do that in the other major cities in the country where they're having terrible crime crises, that should be seen as a positive, and I think most Americans see it that way. If you're a resident of Chicago or New Orleans or one of these other Democrat-run cities, you've had enough. You're tired of your family being walking in fear and not being able to enjoy their lives. And if President Trump can use the resources and do it in a lawful manner to allow National Guard troops to help bring order and restore the rule of law, that is something that is wildly popular with the American people. Now, if you have elected officials in some of these states who are committed to their radical, soft-on-crime ideology and defunding the police and all the things the Democrat Party championed for the last several years, and they want to stand by that, we encourage them to do so. We'll see what the people think about it. Yes, sir. Back row.
Speaker Johnson, a lot of the free health care for illegal aliens that you've been talking about is care provided in emergency rooms, which are required by federal.
Take my word for it. We're not doing that. If you're a young, pregnant American citizen woman who shows up in an ER and you get treated and they pay the hospital less for treating you than some illegal rabble-rouser who came in from some, South American country to do us harm, that is wrong. The Republican Party stands for common sense. In the big, beautiful bill, we fix that. And Chuck Schumer wants to unwind it, and it is unconscionable to me that he's inflicting all this pain on American citizens so they can play games and try to appease the radical left base. That's what this is. Back, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 2 questions about federal worker pay. One, is it your understanding that federal workers will be repaid after this shutdown as part of current law? And 2, would you allow a UC, for example, for the military to ensure that they would be paid in the shutdown?
Those are 2 questions. Federal workers, it's my understanding that the law is that they would be paid. There is some other legal analysis that's floating around. I have yet had time to dig into and read that. But it has always been the case, that is tradition, and I think it is statutory law that federal employees be paid, and that's my position. I think they should be. They should not be subjected to harm and financial dire straits because Chuck Schumer wants to play political games. With regard to paying the troops, I want everybody to listen to me very carefully. Hakeem Jeffries and the House Democrats, as Leader Scalise said so well, are clamoring to get back here and have another vote because some of them want to get on record and say they're for paying the troops. We already had that vote. It's called the CR. Every Republican and at least one Democrat had the common sense to say, of course we want the government to stay in operation. Of course we want to pay our troops and our air traffic controllers and our Border Patrol agents, TSA, and everybody else. We did have that vote. The House, I keep saying the House did its job. We did that almost 3 weeks ago. And every Democrat in the House except one voted against it. They voted that they did not want the troops to be paid. They did not want TSA agents to be paid. They did not want air traffic controllers, Border Patrol agents, and all the rest. They live with that vote. They made that decision. The House is done. The ball is now in the Senate's court. It does us no good to be here dithering on show votes. We did it. We sent the product over. It is clean. It is 24 pages in length. It's the most bare minimum that's necessary to keep the lights on for the people. And Chuck Schumer and 43 of his colleagues, Democrats, continue to do the wrong thing. We're not having it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Democrats continue to allege that the Republican-controlled Senate can change the rules to push through the shutdown impasse. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is also now saying the same. Is there any validity to this, and what sort of precedent would that set for a future Democrat-controlled Senate?
Well, I'd lead the House, but the Senate has its own rules. Some of them are arcane, and when you're in the minority, you don't like it a lot. The filibuster is a tradition over there that's been maintained by both parties whenever they've been in the majority for a long, long time, and they can make a very compelling case as to why that's true. Now, could you go nuclear and blow that all up and end the filibuster once and for all and allow everything for only majority party vote, 51 votes in the Senate? I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it wise? You can have a lot of people who would tell you it's not. I mean, on the Republican side, I would be deeply concerned if the Democrats had a bare majority in the Senate right now, a Marxist ideology taking over the Democrat Party. Do I want them to have no safeguards and no stumbling blocks or hurdles at all in the way of turning us into a communist country? I don't think that's a great idea. That's me. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they always say. And there are some safeguards in the process that were built in a long, long time ago to prevent one party just running roughshod. Now, there's a big contrast between what I just said and the issue that is before us today. We're not asking Chuck Schumer and the Democrats to do anything different than what they've always done. We've shown you the highlight reel. Chuck Schumer gave impassioned speeches as recently as 7 months ago in March of this year. He said, we have to keep the government open. It would be dangerous and harmful to the American people. He said after the vote, he went on CNN and said, I'm proud of that vote. I didn't like it, but we had to do that. He was right then. He is not right now. We're not asking the Democrats to do anything heroic. We're asking them to do their basic duty and responsibility, as Chairwoman McClain said. Keep the government open. The first responsibility, I'm sorry, I'm aggravated. The first responsibility of the government is to protect the people. And the people who are supposed to be protected are being completely cheated by Democrats in the Senate because they want to play politics. They hate Donald Trump. I mean, they have Trump derangement syndrome. It's very real. Listen to their own comments. And they have to show a fight at any cost. When does that cost become too high? In our view, it already has. They have another chance today to reopen the government, and we'll see if they do the right thing. I pray that they do, because real people are being affected by the games here, and they're sick of it. Thanks so much.
That was House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today speaking about the ongoing government shutdown. It is day 8. Let me give you a live look right now in downtown Orlando at the federal courthouse, where the suspect in connection with the Palisades fire in Los Angeles is expected in court about 25 minutes from now. So 1:30 p.m. That is when this suspect, 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht, is due in court, facing charges in connection with that deadly Palisades fire that killed 12 people that investigators believe was started back on January 1st. They talked through some of what they found in that news conference just a little bit ago that we brought you live here on Fox Local. I'll give you this live look again. We are also currently reading through, we got our hands on the criminal complaint that talks a little bit more about what they found in this investigation. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this and get into that a little bit more ahead of the court appearance of 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht, a Melbourne man who is due in court this afternoon after being arrested and charged in connection with that Palisades fire. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. You are taking a live look right now at the federal courthouse in downtown Orlando, where we are expecting 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht to appear shortly. He was just arrested outside his home in Melbourne, according to federal investigators, who were talking at a news conference just a little bit ago that we brought you live right here on Fox Local. And we are now learning some new information about what happened, how the investigation worked, and how they were able to connect this 29-year-old man who you see on your screen right now to that fire. It was a devastating and deadly fire. You may remember some of these images. It started New Year's, essentially, the beginning of the year. And here is some of the devastation and the damage that was left behind. 12 people were killed in that fire. And according to investigators, it started when Rinderknecht was driving as an Uber driver, essentially. I'm trying to pull up, give me 1 second here. I'm trying to pull up a couple of the things I want to show you in this complaint, the criminal complaint that is filed against him. One of the things that we heard discussed in the news conference, one of the things they were asked about, investigators was how if this fire that Rinderknecht is accused of starting was started on January 1st, how they were able to connect it to the Palisades fire, which really began January 7th. And it does talk a little bit about that in the criminal complaint here. This is on page 6. It says, although the LA Fire Department quickly suppressed the Lockman fire, which was the one that was believed to be set by Rinderknecht, they say, unbeknownst to anyone, the fire continued to smolder and burn underground within the root structure of dense vegetation. On January 7th, heavy winds caused the underground fire to surface and spread above ground in what became the Palisades fire. They also talk about the probable cause they have and go into a little bit. Here's what they were talking about, his proximity to the fire. They say he was working that night as a driver for Uber, dropped someone off. The passenger, well, in fact, it says 2 passengers that he drove that night, told investigators that they remembered that Rinderknecht appeared agitated and angry. They talk about listening to a song that they had talked about in that news conference. They say he dropped someone off, that he was familiar with the area because he had previously lived in that area, had hiked along the trail at times. So they say he had dropped someone off, then parked at a trailhead. They say video footage confirms that. Ended up at that point, and this is according to a recorded interview. Hidden Buddha clearing there, and they say at that point they believe he started the fire. You can see some images from that complaint that kind of show that spot. At approximately 11:47 p.m., Rinderknecht used his iPhone to take 2 videos in or near the Hidden Buddha clearing. They say he panned around almost 360 degrees, no fire visible at that point. And I am trying to find, let me see here, where it talks about the glow of the fire. Okay, here we are. The first indication of the Lockman fire captured at 12:01 a.m. from a camera approximately 4.7 miles away. They say 35 seconds earlier that did not show a fire. They also say that Rinderknecht attempted to call 911 at approximately 12:31 a.m. They say that call did not go through. He was likely out of cell phone range, attempted to call 911 again, multiple times, it appears. Then it talks about some other surveillance images showing the growing fire that morning. In fact, here on that criminal complaint, you can see some of those surveillance images showing some of the glowing lights as well. Let me see here. Attempted to call 911 several more times. And this is where it gets interesting. So on the call, this is when his call first connected at 12:17 a.m. GPS data for this call shows he was almost at the bottom of the trail. On the call, Rinderknecht reported the fire. By that point, a local resident already had reported the fire to 911. During the call, according to the criminal complaint, Rinderknecht typed a question into the ChatGPT app on his iPhone asking, "Are you at fault if a fire is lit?" So basically assuming he was trying to say lit. "Are you at fault if a fire is lit because of your cigarettes?" ChatGPT's response was yes, followed by an explanation. I will also see if I can find it in the complaint, but a little bit later on, it does say that investigators ruled out cigarettes as the cause or as an ignition source for that fire. In fact, here it says, it talks a little bit about excluding some of those potential causes. They excluded fireworks. It talks about why. They excluded lightning. There were no strokes in the area. They excluded power lines. Talk a little bit about that. They also looked at refraction of sunlight via glass. So think about potentially, like you've seen in the movies, using a magnifying glass or something like that. This also says smoking was also examined as a possible ignition source due to Rinderknecht's statements that he sometimes smoked cigarettes and his presence in the hidden Buddha clearing at the time the fire was discovered, but smoking was excluded as a cause. This says although discarded cigarettes can cause wildfires, the weather conditions that night were inconsistent with this theory among other reasonings. They say they believed through a number of other methods that they used to investigate this, they believed it was incendiary, an intentional ignition of a fire in an area or under circumstances where or when there should not be a fire. The cause of the fire determined to be the introduction of an open flame, likely a lighter, to a combustible material such as vegetation or paper. This also talks a little bit more about how they were able to investigate that. Now, in the news conference that wrapped up about 45 minutes ago, they did not talk about a motive. They said that they would not really get into that, but they did show a painting, an AI-generated painting, I should say. This was the image that they provided, that they say Rinderknecht had generated through ChatGPT, and it talks about this in the complaint as well, saying that on July 11th, 2024, he provided the following prompt to ChatGPT, and it says, "A dystopian painting divided into distinct parts that blend together seamlessly. On the far left, there is a burning forest. Next to it, a crowd of people running away from the fire, leading to the middle. In the middle, hundreds of thousands of people in poverty are trying to get past a gigantic gate with a big dollar sign on it. On the other side of the gate and the entire wall is a conglomerate of the richest people. They are chilling, watching the world burn down and watching the people struggle. They are laughing, enjoying themselves, and dancing. The scene is detailed and impactful, highlighting the stark contrast and the direct connection between the different parts of the world." That is the prompt that investigators detail in this complaint. In fact, I'll highlight it for you so you can see it there. This is the part that they say that he put into ChatGPT to produce that image that I just showed you. So that, just to give you an idea of some of that would have been July of 2024, about 6 months before this fire happened. They also mentioned a couple of other things about him, talking about burning things, burning a Bible, saying he felt liberated doing that. So these are some of the things that you find in this criminal complaint. It also goes into the origin and cause. You see these images showing the damage that was left behind, and we showed you some of the images that we had from the video. In fact, I'll show you some more of that, just the devastation that was caused by that to so many homes, and again, 12 people died as well. So we're not just talking material things, but lives lost in this fire. So 1:30 p.m., that is when Jonathan Rinderknecht, 29-year-old man, been living in Melbourne. He's expected in federal court in Orlando. We will be inside that courtroom. As I often remind you, when it comes to federal court hearings and proceedings like that, you're not allowed to have cameras in court, so we won't have any video from inside the courtroom, but we will do our best to check in with Fox 35's Randy Hildreth, who is going to be inside that courtroom, and get the details from her on what happened. We are also looking into a number of different aspects as well when it comes to learning more about this and trying to figure out how they were able to piece together some of this, and looking more into the arson investigation as well. Give me 1 second here. I'm just glancing at my notes. From that news conference, there were a lot of questions about how they were able to kind of piece all this together. And the investigators said essentially that they didn't want to give everything away, that there were some things they weren't going to talk about, that they do have evidence of, but that they weren't going to talk about right now because they will have to, at some point put this on as evidence in a trial. And so they didn't discuss motive and some other things, but they did say that they are confident that they do have the evidence that connects this suspect, this Florida man, to that fire back in January in Los Angeles. They say they are, again, confident of a conviction here. And as for a reason, one of the investigators had a quote, "Evil people do evil things." Now, we should note that all suspects are innocent until proven guilty, so that is the presumption of innocence right now. But he is certainly facing very serious charges again, and expected to appear in federal court this afternoon. So we'll have much more coverage of that coming up in the next little bit here on Fox Local. Going to step aside for a minute, take another quick break, and we'll be right back with more after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are still standing by, and hope to bring you updates shortly on the Palisades arson suspect due in federal court in Orlando in the next few minutes. That's a hearing scheduled for 1:30, again, inside federal court, so unable to bring you those proceedings live, but we will be monitoring those and keep you up to date on what happens. Meanwhile, I do want to bring you a story in case you missed it, because we brought this to you first as breaking news yesterday afternoon on Fox Local, and that it was a 15-year-old girl who died after being shot Monday outside a restaurant in Cocoa. She was identified as Kariah Duncan, a 15-year-old. We learned a little bit more of information about what happened, but last night, family and friends, others in the community came together to hold a vigil for her, and Fox 35's Chris Lindsay was there, had the chance to speak with her mother, and again, learn a little bit more about this young girl who was shot and killed earlier this week.
She was visiting one of her favorite restaurants here on Clear Lake Road when out of nowhere more than 20 shots were fired. As the community came together to mourn her, the mother tells me she believes that her daughter was not the intended target of this attack. According to the sheriff's office, an SUV pulled up behind Kariah and the other two, blocking them in. At least 2 gunmen got out and fired more than 20 times at close range. The teen was rushed to the hospital but didn't make it. Tuesday evening, dozens of loved ones showed up to Clear Lake Road to pay their respects. Her mother, Ashley Pratt, in shambles as she remembers her daughter's life.
Kariah was funny. She liked to dance. She liked to listen to music. She liked to blog. She was a special kid. She always smiling, always dancing, always laughing, always cracking jokes, always being Kariah.
Her mother urging those suspects to come forward and turn themselves in. The 2 other victims that were shot in this incident are expected to be okay. Reporting in Brevard County, Chris Lindsay, Fox 35 News.
Again, a sad update to hear about the, what her family is going through about that. Again, that was an update to some breaking news that we brought you yesterday, so I wanted you to have a little bit more information now that we have that. We are also learning more about an armed carjacking suspect in Volusia County who is accused of leading deputies on a chase not only across the land but also across the Halifax River. Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood spoke with us about this case where this man's accused of carjacking a driver at gunpoint in Daytona Beach shores, then coming out of the river, threw his shirt off, ran through a bar before deputies found him hiding in the mangroves. Again, Sheriff Chitwood with more on what we know about that situation.
Sheriff Chitwood, what are your thoughts on the alleged actions of the suspect?
So last night around 9 o'clock in Daytona Beach Shores, we have a gentleman driving down A1A. He's approached by somebody, looks a little disheveled, doesn't look quite out, it looks quite out of it, and flags the motorist down and says, hey, I need a ride. And the motorist is like, not only no, hell no, I'm not giving you a ride. And as the motorist goes to put the window up, our suspect pulls out a gun, points it at him, and says, I'm taking the car. Orders our victim out of the car, jumps in the car, takes off. Our victim flags down a vehicle as it's passing by. They call 911. At that very time, we're getting a call from the deck down under, which sits underneath of the Dunlawton Bridge, maybe a mile away. They're telling us that a white male swam up to the restaurant, climbed up, ran through the restaurant, took their shirt off, threw it in the trash can, jumped back into the intercoastal waterway, and swam into the mangroves. That triggered a massive response from us, the Shores, Edgewater, Port Orange. We had drones, boats, helicopters out there. Helicopter was up with heat sensing, and we were able to track him down after a lengthy search in the mangroves. We also, during that search, recovered the victim's car, and the firearm that was allegedly used was laying outside of the vehicle. What we discovered was the suspect in this case, according to family members, had been out on a meth binge for the last 3 days, hadn't really slept, and the weapon that we recovered belongs to one of his family members. He's got an extensive criminal history, he's got 8 prior felony arrests, obviously whacked out of his mind, and clearly, thank God, that our victim complied, because who would have known how this would have ended up had our victim driven away, had the victim stayed in the car. I mean, this has tragedy written all over, but it worked out well. He's in custody, hopefully with an armed carjacking here that we have, that he won't see the light of day for quite a while. But again, it just goes to show you, no matter where you're at, we're in a really good neighborhood, beachside, and here is a victim of a carjacking. So you always have to be aware of your surroundings. And again, don't stop if somebody goes to flag you down. Call 911, that's our job. Keep your windows up, drive away, stay a safe distance, give us a good description, and let us come and do our job.
Absolutely. What is Volusia County's stance on this type of violence?
Zero tolerance. I mean, as you could see by the response was massive. It wasn't just the sheriff's office. It was all the neighboring jurisdictions were there, drones, boats. You know, you come into our county and you commit a violent crime, you can rest assured we're coming after your ass with everything we got.
Describe the process of your deputies tracking the suspect down in the mangroves.
Well, in this case, the best witness was not only the victim who gave us a detailed description of what the guy was wearing, but the deck down under. I mean, who swims up to the bar at 9 o'clock at night and jumps out of the water and takes their shirt off? They called immediately and then told us where he went when he jumped back in and swam into the mangroves. And there's not a whole lot of places you can go without cutting yourself to ribbons on the oyster beds there. You know, whatever. It's just a matter of using technology and the heat sensor to find out where in the mangroves he was hiding.
So deputies have also said that the suspect ran through a local bar soaking in wet and with his clothes off. What is your stance on that?
No, he took the shirt off. He swam up, climbed out, ran through the bar soaking wet. He came right out of the Halifax River, threw his shirt into the trash can, ran back through the restaurant, dove back into the water, and swam out to the mangroves where I guess he thought he was going to hide for, I don't know, but he clearly was not thinking properly, and he's in the branch chair where he belongs.
What message do you have for the suspect?
The message is now you're in the hands of the court system, and you know they're going to deal with you what's appropriate, you know, and that's what we're going to let it go. Let the state attorney's office and the judges do their job. They do a really good job here.
That was Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood. Now, earlier today in Tallahassee, we, well, I will say, this is the start this week of interim committee meetings ahead of the upcoming legislative session in Tallahassee. There have been a lot of committee meetings for a number of different topics. Earlier today, there was one, the Florida House Government Operations Subcommittee. They held a meeting and talked with the Florida Secretary of State, Cord Byrd, who gave them a presentation and answered their questions about elections in Florida. And several things specifically. He talked about preparations for the 2026 midterm elections. He talked about election security. The first thing he talked about was election operations during natural disasters, specifically hurricanes. We know that election day comes around in the middle of hurricane season, sometimes the busiest part of it, and that there can be impacts there. And so he talked a little bit about what the state does to help with making sure elections are still able to go on smoothly, and some of what they do to help with local governments and whatever impacts there may be. So a little bit of interesting conversation in that, as we heard from Secretary of State Cord Byrd in that hearing earlier today, that committee meeting, I should say, not hearing. But to hear him talk a little bit about that. So I want to play some of that for you as he talks about the elections during natural disasters, and also goes into some of the election security, which we, of course, hear a lot about. But he was saying there are several reasons, and he gives some of those, several reasons that they believe Florida's elections are safe, they are secure, and they are accurate.
It's a privilege to be back in the House, as always. I notice everybody's smiling. They look refreshed. You know, you can tell it's the first committee week. It's not the last week of session. So it's good to see everybody. And thank you again for the opportunity to tell you and share with you how Florida successfully conducts elections during adverse weather conditions and what Florida is doing to prepare for the 2026 election cycle. My testimony today will mirror that I've presented to Congress a few weeks ago. I've had the opportunity to present before Congress 4 times in the last year and had 3 trips to the White House. So there is a lot of interest in D.C. and how Florida conducts elections. So once again, happy to share that with y'all today. So during the last 2 election cycles in 2022 and 2024, 5 significant hurricanes hit different parts of the state. Storms, fires, floods, and power outages can all happen during a major weather event. So elections administrators have to be prepared for everything. In 2022, 2 major hurricanes hit Florida during the election cycle. One 30 days before the election during the early voting period, and one during the election certification period. I visited the affected counties to survey the damage and saw firsthand the destruction, and worked with the supervisors of election in impacted counties to determine their specific needs based on the obstacles voters faced in their county. Governor DeSantis then issued executive orders addressing the needs identified by the supervisors. And I really want to emphasize that point, that the way we do it in Florida is that we talk to the supervisors. They're the constitutionally elected officers in their county. So we talk to them, what are their specific needs? Because we could have the same storm, but the affected counties may have different needs. It may be flooding in one area. It may be power outages in another. It may be damaged homes where the mail can't be delivered. So we try to work with those individual supervisors directly to know what specific targeted issues we need to resolve in the executive order. These orders established additional, but going back to 2022, the orders established additional early voting sites, amended and extended reporting requirements for supervisors, and extended deadlines for eligibility verification for voters. As a result of these executive actions, the 2022 general election voter turnout in the most severely impacted counties either closely matched or in one county exceeded statewide voter turnout for that election year, which I think is a real testament to the effectiveness of what we're doing, that there's no drop off in the turnout in those impacted counties. Moving forward to 2024, which was another active hurricane season with 3 hurricanes hitting during the 60-day election cycle. As always, we adjusted to ensure voters had every opportunity to cast a ballot. The first hurricane hit just weeks before the primary election. The second storm struck a month later, and then within a week of the supervisors canvassing their first votes for the general election. And then weeks after the second storm, a third major hurricane came ashore less than a month before the general election. Again, I worked with the supervisors to determine their specific needs, and Governor DeSantis acted by signing executive orders tailored to meet those needs. These executive orders created a streamlined process for displaced voters to have their vote by mail ballots sent to where they were living after the storms. It also gave supervisors of elections the ability to relocate or consolidate polling sites or early voting sites. While these storms disrupted the daily lives of voters, we made sure to safeguard their ability to vote. We also worked to make sure first responders and linemen working long hours and away from home had the opportunity to cast their ballots. First and foremost are those people directly impacted by the storms that live in those communities, but we rush aid to those places. So we have electrical workers and first responders that are coming from all over the state that may not be home when early voting or election day is taking place. So we have to make sure that those individuals also have the ability to cast a ballot where they're deployed following the storm during recovery efforts. And we also worked to make sure that the linemen, as a result in 2024, Florida saw its highest voter turnout in 30 years. I can't emphasize enough. In 2024, we had the highest voter turnout as a percentage of the vote in 30 years. So we've learned that our citizens want to vote. They are very eager to vote, and it's really, really encouraging that when you go to these impacted areas and you see people who've lost their homes, that their communities have been devastated, and they are going to make every effort. They want to know how to vote. They want to. It's encouraging to know that how important the franchise is to people and how eager they are to vote, even in the midst of great tragedy. So before I move on to the next topic, I really want to emphasize that the way we're doing it, I think, is the most effective way, in the sense that there's been some talk or discussion of trying to have a one-size-fits-all or a standardized statute or law that governs the way we conduct or the way we respond to natural disasters. But my experience is that because each of them are so unique in their impact, and even within an impacted county, the needs could be different in, say, the north end of the county than the south end, which is why I think the way we currently do it, which is to have the supervisor of elections, who it's my responsibility to enforce the election code and make sure the laws are being followed, go and talk to the supervisors. They're the elected representatives in their county, find out what their specific needs are, and then tailor an executive order to meet those specific needs of that specific election, which I think is the proper way to go. Because as we y'all now try to make laws that cover for a one-size-fits-all for every hurricane or every natural disaster event, I think it becomes very, very difficult to get the specifics necessary in order to do that. So I would just emphasize that the the model we have is working, and I think that's borne out by the results of the last two elections when we had significant hurricanes, but yet the people in the impacted counties still had the ability to vote. I'm now going to turn my remarks to election security. So recently, the James Madison Institute had a research study in which they called Florida the gold standard in elections administration. And certainly, I'm a little biased in that, but I think when I've traveled around the country and I have been invited to testify before legislatures in other states, I've visited with legislators in other states. As I mentioned, I've gone to D.C. multiple times, and everybody is interested in wanting to know, how does Florida conduct its elections so well? And that's significant, being the third largest state, having, in the last election, over 11 million people cast ballots, and to have the results by 7 p.m. or right after 7 p.m. on election night is very significant, because every minute, every hour, every day that passes after the election, doubt starts to creep in. So we're very proud of our ability to timely count ballots and report those results accurately to voters. So while we are committed to ensuring that all eligible Floridians who want to vote can cast a ballot, we are equally committed to preventing election fraud and protecting the integrity of Florida's vote. When the governor appointed me, my first task in our conversation, and when we look back to 2020, because I was appointed in 2022, there was a lot of concern after the 2020 election. There was not that concern in Florida because we conducted a successful election, but perception is reality. And my job every day that I go to work, my team behind me, we want to make sure that Floridians trust the franchise in Florida, that they trust the election, the process, and that they trust the results. Because if we lose the trust in the elections, then this whole experiment in democracy, it becomes much harder. So we really work every day to ensure that Floridians have trust, and I'm going to tell you why they can trust our elections. The 2024 results demonstrated that voter access and election integrity are not mutually exclusive. It doesn't, either access and integrity they're not competing interests. They actually work in tandem. So let me share some of our best practices. First, standardization. As you know, Florida voters have 3 voting options. They can vote at their precinct on election day, vote early at a designated site, or vote by mail. While we want to be as flexible as possible during an emergency, some parts of election administration must remain standardized throughout Florida. From the Keys to the Panhandle, in both small and large counties, the voting process is the same. This uniformity helps elections run efficiently. And what I really admire about our election code and what we've done over the last 25 years to get to this point is I've traveled to all 67 counties. I've been to every single supervisor's office. And when you go to a Miami-Dade or Broward in this massive operation, and then last week I was visiting some of our smaller counties, because one of the things I do is I get out, and we had about 11 or 12, 13 new supervisors elected last time. So I wanted to make sure that I go out and meet all of the new supervisors, that they're getting all the resources they need. But when you see the disparities just in size, some supervisors' offices, there's a supervisor and one other person. Then you go to the larger counties and they have dozens or hundreds of people working. So we have to have a election code that meets the needs of a Miami-Dade and a Liberty County, but also is uniform in the sense that those voters in Miami-Dade or Liberty are not being treated differently in the way that they cast their vote, or the way that their vote is processed, or the way that their vote is counted. So paper ballots and audits. So Florida law mandates the use of paper ballots, which must be marked by the voter. I'm proud to say that was my bill in 2020, HB 1005, which passed unanimously out of the House, that mandated or established the fact that in Florida, the paper ballot is the best evidence of the voter's intent. I want to emphasize that point, that in Florida, we rely on paper ballots marked by the voter, except for the ADA machines, which is required by federal law, but that still prints out a paper ballot that can be verified by the voter. But in the vast majority of voters who vote, they are marking the vote or the ballot themselves. That ballot is the best evidence. Should there become a challenge or a discrepancy, or one side thinks, or one candidate thinks that something went wrong, the canvassing board is going to look at paper ballots that is in a public meeting. If that case has to go to court, the judge will look at paper ballots to rectify and determine what the voter's true intent was. So we don't rely on machine counts. we rely on paper ballots in Florida. So once voters have marked the ballot, it is scanned through a tabulator, creating a tally from the voter selection for each race on the ballot. Each tabulator is tested in a publicly noticed meeting before an election to verify it is counting correctly. That is called the LNA, logic and accuracy testing. Some of you may have, in your counties, gone and witnessed that publicly. Then, after each election, the county must perform a voting system audit. The purpose of the audit is to check that the equipment and procedures accurately recorded and counted the votes. The audit is publicly noticed in advance and open to the public. Results are to the public, and results are posted for everyone to see. Another thing that I'm very proud of what we do in Florida. You know, when you go look back to the 2020 election and you see on the news, and it's the famous, you know, the pizza boxes that were put up in front of windows in other states so the public couldn't see. But when I've traveled around Florida, and our two newest election offices, both in Dade and Broward counties, they're unbelievable. They are the standard for, I think, the entire country. I mean, it is glass everywhere. You can see and watch every part of the process. There are microphones. There are TV screens. There's viewing for the public. There is viewing for the press. Our elections are open and transparent. Everyone can watch every step of the way, which I think is really, really significant, and is also one of those things that instills trust in voters, that they can go see how we conduct our elections.
Florida Secretary of State Cord Byrd speaking earlier in front of that Florida House Committee. A live look outside the United States Courthouse in downtown Orlando, where we expect 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderneck to be in court at this hour. Again, no cameras allowed inside, but he is the 29-year-old suspect who is now charged in connection with the deadly Palisades fire in Los Angeles. Keep it right here. We will have more coverage coming up in just a couple of minutes right here on Fox Local, but we are going to take a quick break.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. The Florida Panthers began the NHL season last night. They got to play the first regular season game of the year, taking on the Chicago Blackhawks yesterday down in Sunrise. And if the Florida Panthers are looking to three-peat, then They started their season off on the right foot, winning 3-2 over the Blackhawks. They are now 1-0 to start the season. I heard from some of the players after the game to talk about that win and starting a new year.
Yeah, I mean, Barkey's not the most vocal guy in the world, but obviously Matthew is, so I guess you miss a lot of that on the bench. You miss a lot of Barkey's game on the ice, but yeah, proud of the way the guys played tonight. Got to our game and found a way to get a win.
How sweet was it to see another banner go up there?
It's awesome. It's always an emotional moment for sure. I know that everybody who experienced that felt that same emotion.
I didn't get a question, but I was assuming, what was it like to get that hoist, the last one, technically, before it starts all over again for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that was nice. That's obviously Barkey's spot. I was just filling in, but it feels incredible coming out in front of our fans, being able to hoist it one more time. But trying to put that feeling behind us and move on to playing hockey this year.
The PK has been this team's calling card for a couple of years now. How nice was it to start with a big night on the PK?
Yeah, really nice. Bob stood tall. We found a way to make their break-ins hard. A couple of really good block shots, some good sticks. So yeah, that's the foundation of the PK.
And at the end there, just the defense keeping net or net for eating up those big seconds at the end. How key was that?
Yep, huge. We played well in front of Bob, and happy to get this win.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked our game. I thought our line played pretty well. Consistently through the game, I thought we were doing the right things, and then I thought got some bounces too, and overall I like it, and we're in a good spot.
The thinking on the game winner, just get it somewhere near the net and hope somebody else.
Yeah, I saw Bokey on the backside there. We're just buzzing down the side there, so I thought just get it over to him, and obviously not the greatest pass, but kudos to him for putting it in.
Looks good on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
Bokey's always kind of glowing after his goals.
Oh,
what
yeah.
kind of energy does he bring to the ice out there for you guys?
So much energy, even on the bench too, talking what he sees and what he wants. It's a lot easy to play with, so fast too. During the game, his energy is high. I love playing with him. He's a great dude.
This is the start of a very long grind for you guys again back to the playoffs. How nice is it just to get that good feeling back off the bat?
Yeah, it feels really good. It feels really good to get in front of the fans again. I thought the building was buzzing. Gave us energy for sure at the start and throughout the game. So, feels really good to get 2 points.
And on the fans, just how much were you enjoying the banner raising and just being part of that atmosphere?
Yeah, it was great to be a part of it. Last year it was different not being a part of it, but this year, it feels that much better to be a part of it, and it's gonna be up there forever, so it feels good.
Career gets started for you guys tonight. What do you say about the work that line puts in for you guys?
Yeah, it's unreal. They do the simple things really good, and that's why they're really good night in and night out, and they're our rock back there, and I feel like we could always trust them.
It's a great opportunity to enjoy it one last time and kind of turn the page. The second that puck drops, it's a whole new season, a new opportunity, new challenges, and we've already had to face some adversity this year, and it's a great opportunity to come together. So it's a pretty special feeling being able to watch it go up, and knowing that's going to be up there forever. But the emotion kind of carries over in the game, and we started really well, and I think you can see the guys are excited. Obviously not our best effort for 60, but a good win for us.
Is this going to be the blueprint for this team? Obviously, without Barkey and Chucky for a while, that there's going to be some nights where you just have to grind one out.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the motto, even with them in the lineup. You look at the way that we played to finish the season and through playoffs. That was our game. We just kind of grinded it out and competed, and with our depth, it's a recipe for success. So, obviously those are some big holes to fill. Nosey being out hurts as well, and but it's just a new opportunity for guys, and next man up, kind of mindset. So, yeah, it's just a great opportunity, and we're gonna have to grind it out. We're gonna get everybody's best every night. We know that. They're gonna come in and compete at the highest level. No game's gonna be easy, so we just have to prepare for that.
With how long the season is, how important is it to get that winning feeling back in the room early, like tonight?
Yeah, it's long. It's not gonna be as long as the season's moving forward. But you got that, eh? 84 games. Yeah, no, it's a great way to start. You want to start with a win. It just feels good. Even if it's not the best, you're not going to be perfect out of the game, especially, how not many guys got too many preseason games, so you're kind of getting the cobwebs out. And even the preseason games we played, I don't think you could say they were actually games. So yeah, it's just it's great, even with lack of time we've played so far to have a good win.
On the how was it skating tonight on the line? You haven't had a lot of time to skate with Benny and Swaggy, but how did you guys do out there?
I thought we played really well. We could have had 10 goals tonight. We had some really good opportunities. There's definitely some areas I think we can be a little bit better, but considering I think we skated together for one practice yesterday, and so considering that, I mean, I liked our game.
Brian,
you talked about the depth, Mackey getting 2 assists, Greer and both scoring, just to see contributions from some of the guys who you guys know are going to need to see them step up in game 1.
Well, yeah, that's why our team is so good. We rely on everybody, and Mackey has looked unbelievable from the second he came into camp. Bogey, same thing. They're calling on the new Conn Smythe winner. He took it from Benny. He's been looking so good. So, it's great to see that we continue to, rely on our depth throughout the entire game, and that's how every good team has success. You can rely on a couple guys for a little bit and for periods of the year, but to have success all the way through the year in playoffs, you need everyone, and it's great that we still have that.
We didn't catch you last night.
Anytime you get the chance to compete, be in close games, it's just.
So that was part of the post-game news conference last night after the Panthers started the season with a win. They are certainly dealing with some obstacles to that, to their hopes for a three-peat with the absence of one of their captains, Barkov. You heard them talk about that early on there in the first answer to the first question, talking about some of the differences there. But they are off to a good start. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they kick off their season tomorrow evening in their first game, and we are actually going to talk a little bit more about that in our next hour. So keep it here on Fox Local for that. We are getting ready to take a break here before we kind of reset for that 2 o'clock hour. Welcome in our TV audience as well at the top of the hour for Florida Live. But let me give you a live look right now at the federal courthouse in downtown Orlando. That is the aerial view, and this is from our crew on the ground outside there, where 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht is in court right now, facing charges in connection with the Palisades fire, the wildfire in Los Angeles that burned throughout January, caused a lot of damage, killed 12 people as well. We're continuing to look into this and learn more about this situation, the investigation, the charges against the 29-year-old man. In fact, let me show you this photo taken after his arrest, posted on social media from the acting U.S. attorney